Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being so patient with us. We had some technical difficulties, but it looks like we're hopefully ready to go. Welcome to the November 3rd, 2022 California Board of Behavioral Sciences meeting. My name is Max Disposte Jimenez, and chairperson of this board. Before we convene, I would like to remind everyone that is present that the board is a consumer protection agency that is charged with administering and enforcing the board laws. Where protections of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protections of the public shall be paramount. The Board of Behavioral Sciences will be holding this public meeting in person and via WebEx platform. I will announce when we are accepting public comments on the various issues. And for each public comments period, we will first be accepting the comments from the participants in the audience that are present in the room. Then the moderator will open the lines as appropriate so that the remote audience members can also comment. Each commentator will have 2 minutes to comment. And moderator, now it's your time. Would you please provide the audience instructions on how they might participate during the meeting and at the appropriate time? So thank you again.
Absolutely. To make a public comment, you will type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users will dial *3 to raise their hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. The floor is yours, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much. To all our members, during the roll call, please introduce yourself and let the public know wherever you are public or licensed members as we do the roll call. And before we go there, I just would like to note that we have a new member joining us today, which is Eleanor Uribe, or Uribe. I'm sorry, Eleanor, if I mispronounced it.
Uribe.
Uribe. Okay, perfecto. I should know that. Thank you, Eleanor, for being here. You'll have the opportunity to introduce yourself in a second. And she's our LCCW member today. And tomorrow we'll have the chance for a more formal greeting, but I wanted to say welcome and thank you for being here today. Christina Kitamura, if you can please call the roll to establish our quorum today. Thank you.
Good morning. Abigail Ortega. Here. Susan Friedman. Here. Justin Huff.
Here, LMFT member.
Wendy Strack.
Here, public member.
Max Disposte.
Here, public member.
Christopher Jones.
Here, LEP member.
Kelly Ranasinghe.
Here, public member.
John Sobek.
Here, LMFT. My pronouns are he, him.
Dr. Annette Walker.
Good morning. Here, public member, pronouns she, her, and hers.
Eleanor Uribe.
Here, licensed clinical social worker.
And for the record, Ross Ehrlich and Yvette Caceres-Willis are absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Christina. Good morning to you, our staff as well. We're moving now to our item 2 of the agenda, which is suggestions for future agenda items. This is the time where our board members or members of the public might make a suggestion for future agenda items. So we'll start from the board. If there are any added agenda items for our next board meeting. Looking around. Okay, doesn't look we have any. So if we're okay, moderator, we can ask to our audience to see if there are any suggested agenda items.
We are now open for public comment on agenda item 2. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take about 15 seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. We have a request for comment from Hector Ramirez. Hold on just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Ramirez. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Buenos dias. Good morning. My name is Hector Ramirez. My pronouns are they, them. I am Chiricahua Apache and Mexican, and I live in Los Angeles County and the unceded lands of the Tonga people. I really want to thank all of you for being here today, definitely having a quorum. I am a consumer of Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health. I've been a consumer now for over 20 years. I'm a person with a disability, a psychiatric disability. And I really just wanted to make us a suggestion for possible public or for possible topics further down is to really look at how care cord accessibility and the idea of what a stakeholder is as possible topics for future agenda items for your meeting. Given the significant impact that these issues have not only on people like myself in Los Angeles County, where we have the largest number of people with psychiatric disabilities in the country, but also for the state of California and the work that you do, particularly given the policy and workforce development that you particularly focus on. I look forward to working and attending these particular meetings as a stakeholder, as an authentic stakeholder, and really being able to bring my communities into this particular forum to inform and to participate in the great work that each and every one of you do. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you, Hector Ramirez. I just want to make sure that our staff understood the proposal agenda item because I know it was a long one. Okay, we got it? Okay, wonderful. Thank you again. Moderator, are there any other comments or requests, suggestions for future agenda items?
This is the moderator. We have one attendee who has said that they're having difficulties. We're working with them. In the meantime, I think we should proceed.
Okay. Thank you. We're now moving agenda item number 3, which is public comments for items that are not in the agenda. As a reminder, the board might not discuss or take any actions on any matter raised during the public comment section, except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. And each commentator will have 2 minutes. I start from my board members. If there are any comments for items not on the agenda that you would like to address today. Okay, it looks like we're good. And moderator, if you can open again to the public to see if there are any public comments for items not in the agenda. Thank you.
We are now accepting public comment for items not on the agenda. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, we should return to the agenda, but we have a request from the board for the last speaker to email the board. We will get an email address posted momentarily.
Yes, thank you, moderator. That will be the case. Thank you so much. So I am proceeding with the board agenda, and actually we're moving to our item 4, which is our petitioner hearing. And at this time, we can begin our petition hearing. And I will pass the floor to our administrative law judge. The judge, deputy attorney general, and petitioner will be attending the hearing remotely today, and will be conducted by Judge Jessica Wall. So I just want to make sure that our judge is actually able to connect and they can hear us. Judge, can you hear us?
Thank you. Yes.
Wonderful. So I'm turning the meeting to you, and I'll be here for any assistance or anything you need. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have about 4 questions because I haven't sat with your board yet about your preferences. So my first one is related to our lack of a court reporter today. I know you're recording the meeting via WebEx. Would you also like me to make a recording via electronic recorder?
I'm asking our legal counsel that she's approaching. Yes? Yes, that will be confirmed.
Okay, thank you. That'll take me a moment between each case, and I'll let you know as I do that. My next question is, I think it'll be answered by the slides, but the order of cases I believe I had from the agenda would be Ms. Guerrero, Mr. Pospisil, and then Ms. Venega. Is that correct?
That's confirmed, yes.
Okay. And then when we do questions from the board, would you mind to poll the board members since you're there with them and probably will do a better job pronouncing everyone's names?
Yes.
Thank you. And would you like Ms. Crawford to ask the questions first, or would the board like to go first with questions?
Usually we like the Ms. Crawford to go first and to do an over examinations, and then we'll go back with the board. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Is Ms. Guerrero able to be viewed on video camera? I don't see her yet. Oh, here we go.
Sorry, it's a little dark. This is the best
No
volume I
problem.
have at the moment.
I'm able to hear you. Is the board able to hear Ms. Guerrero as well? Sounds good. One moment. Let me get the electronic recording ready to go on my end. Okay. All right. So Ms. Guerrero, I just want to double check before we go on the record. Do we have all of the documents you intended to submit today? Did you give those all to the board or Ms. Crawford?
Yes. The only thing which I believe Mr. Zimmerman, my probation officer, had emailed about was that there's just under, I think it's Exhibit 2, the first page is not my cover page. It's another person's.
Ms. Crawford, was that addressed by the corrected copy I received this morning?
Yes, it was, and the board should also have a corrected copy. I would refer the board to the DAGS exhibit packet. That's listed as 1A DAGS exhibit packet Guerrero.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Guerrero, do you intend to have any witnesses other than yourself testify in support of your petition today?
Yes, I believe there should be 3 people present.
Okay, and could you give me their names, please?
Janine, Roxanne, and Christian.
Great. And how it generally goes is that petitioners will present their own testimony, and then you'll be questioned by the DAG as well as the board, and then you may call your witnesses and you can ask them some questions in support of your petition.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And the board has the benefit of already reading through your petition materials, so you don't need to repeat every single thing in there. You just want to give the board an opportunity to explain why you're here, why you believe your petition should be granted, and answer their questions.
Okay.
Do you have any questions before we begin today? I'll give you more instructions once we're on the record.
Oh, no, I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And moment. One moment, please. My recorder is acting up. I will be off camera just for a moment to get one additional thing. And I'm back. Once I see Ms. Crawford, I'll be ready for us to go on the record. There we go. I sincerely apologize to the board. It appears my electronic recorder is not working this morning. So with the board's permission, the WebEx electronic recording might be the only audio copy of this hearing today. Do you need to discuss that with counsel?
I believe that I just confirmed with legal counsel. I believe that would be okay. Not a problem.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
I apologize. It's not done this before and I'm not quite sure what's going on with it. So to use everyone's time efficiently, I think it's best we just
It's all good, Judge. Thank you, though.
copy. Thank you. All right. We are on the record before the Board of Behavioral Sciences reviewing 3 petitions for early termination of probation. May I please have the board members identify themselves for the record to establish that we have quorum?
Christina, if you can do that again. Thank you. Yes.
Abigail Ortega. LCSW present. Susan Friedman.
Public member present.
Justin Huft.
LMFT member present.
Wendy Strack.
Public member present.
Max Disposti.
Public member, board chair, present.
Christopher Jones.
LEP member, vice chair present.
Kelly Ranasinghe.
Public member present.
John Sovek.
Present, LMFT.
Dr. Annette Walker.
Public member present.
Eleanor Uribe. LCSW present. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. My name is Jessica Wall. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and I've been assigned to preside over this matter. The first matter we are hearing today is the matter of the petition for early termination of probation filed by Christine S. Guerrero, agency case number 200-201-900-2236, OAH case number 2022-100259. May I please take the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General?
Anahita Crawford, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Ms. Guerrero is present and representing herself. Ms. Guerrero, I want to confirm that you knew you had the right to hire counsel at your own expense and are choosing to represent yourself today.
Yes.
Thank you. So Ms. Guerrero, before we go any further, I'd like to swear you in so the board can consider your testimony as facts. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm now going to give you some instructions about this hearing. In this proceeding, the board is concerned with hearing about any rehabilitation since your license discipline. Ms. Crawford will first present your petition package and provide background in this matter. After that, you'll have the opportunity to make your presentation. A reminder that the board has had the benefit of reading your petition package and you don't have to repeat the items within that package. You will be subject to questioning by the board and by Ms. Crawford. After the hearing, the board will go into closed session to deliberate. You will not receive a decision today. It will be mailed in the near future. Do you have any questions, Ms. Guerrero?
No, thank you.
Thank you. So, Ms. Crawford, if you wouldn't mind presenting the petition package in a brief history.
Yes, Your Honor. The first exhibit in the packet is the memo to the board from the probation analyst that we would like introduced.
All right. And Ms. Guerrero, I'm going to question you after each of these exhibits to make sure that you don't have any objection to them. If you have any questions about what an objection is, just let me know and I can explain that. Do you have any objection to admitting Exhibit 1?
No.
Thank you. Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Exhibit 2 is the petition for early termination of probation and attachments in support that we would like introduced at this time.
Ms. Guerrero, do you have any objections to introduction and admittance of Exhibit 2? Thank you. Exhibit 2 is admitted.
Exhibit 3 contains the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, as well as the underlying accusation in this matter. We would like that introduced at this time.
Ms. Guerrero, do you have any objections to Exhibit 3?
No.
Thank you. Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Exhibit 4 is the certification of registration history for Ms. Guerrero that we'd like to introduce at this time.
Ms. Guerrero, do you have any objections to Exhibit 4?
No.
Thank you. Exhibit 4 is admitted.
And Exhibit 5 contains the notification of hearing to the petitioner.
Ms. Guerrero, do you have any objection to admittance of Exhibit 5?
No.
Thank you. Exhibit 5 is admitted.
I have no further evidence to present, Your Honor, and I will proceed with a brief background of the case.
Thank you.
On September 9th of 2019, the petitioner was convicted of driving under the influence of alcohol. Her blood alcohol level was a 0.179. A stipulated settlement was entered into effective July 9th of 2020, which placed the petitioner on 3 years of probation with standard and optional terms of probation, which did include remedial education, dependency support program, and biological fluid testing. The petitioner was also ordered to pay $1,379.39 in costs. The petitioner is compliant in all aspects of her probation. At this time, the petitioner is requesting to terminate her probation early. And her probation is set to terminate July 8th, 2023. Approximately 8 months remain on her probationary period. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. So, Ms. Guerrero, we now move over to your opportunity to testify. So you have an opportunity to present why you filed your petition, any testimony on your own behalf. You don't need to ask yourself questions because you're self-represented. You're welcome to testify in a narrative. And just again, you have a reminder that the board has the benefit of having already read your petition package. So with that, you may begin.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I thought I would submit for early release of probation, mainly because at this point, it kind of feels like being on probation or off probation, everything's pretty much going to be the same either way. It's after 2 years of managing being on probation, not drinking for 2 years, it kind of just shifts your life into a point where that is just how your life is now. So I kind of feel like requesting to be off of probation really, at this point, feels like it's putting me in a stance where it is not a big party, like it's not going to be a big celebration. It's just going to be life continuing as is. And being able to then just be able to move forward more professionally without this being something that is holding me back from being able to move forward in my professional goals. And so that's the main reason that I'm asked to be able to be off of probation early. I really feel like this process has been helpful in a lot of ways, in the sense of, just my being able to take time to think about what had happened, why it happened, and the changes that need to be made. I feel like it was really important in the first several months and in the first year. But I think, again, at this point, it feels like things are as they are, and being off probation, again, would just be an ability for me to advance my career goals more than it would be finally like being released from restraints of things like not being able to drink or something like that. That's not really a factor in my request for today. I don't really have too much more to say because I feel like everything that I've said or everything that I wanted to share was written in my statement. So.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Guerrero. So I'm going to start with having Ms. Crawford ask you some questions, unless there's anything else you'd like to say first.
No, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Crawford?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Guerrero, what is the status of your criminal case, your DUI case?
It should be closed at this point. I was on like informal probation, I believe, for 3 years, but that ended in September because it's been 3 years since the incident has occurred.
So it's your understanding it ended in September of 2022?
Yes.
Okay. And what is your sobriety date?
My sobriety date would be, I believe, like since being on probation with the BBS. So I think it stopped in June, like a month
So
before being on.
June of what year?
Oh, 2020. Prior to that, I was pregnant, so I wasn't drinking. But then I didn't know I was on probation after, in between April and
Okay.
June.
I think in your packet, you counted your sobriety date prior to probation, so it was July 2019. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah,
Because you mentioned you were pregnant.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. And since July of 2019, you've gone on to have 2 children?
I have, yes.
Now, your 2 little ones, that's a big
Mm-hmm.
motivator to stay sober.
Mhm.
Have you looked at what place alcohol serves in your life when you have terrible twos toddlers and a career to manage and you're not on probation and you've got mounting stress?
Yeah.
What role does alcohol play in your life at that point?
I think like in those moments, none, and it really hasn't. In the meantime, again, like having 2 young kids through the pandemic, through just period having them, there have been already a lot of stressful moments in my life, just due to the nature of having young kids, and alcohol has not really been like a need or a want or a desire in those moments. So I don't foresee that changing. I do think it's just probably more of like an added stress. I'm exhausted enough, you know? So I don't really see that as like helping relieve stress at this point, more than just like creating extended exhaustion. Um, it's not, I don't see that as like a tool in that category for me.
Okay. So what education courses or what have you learned in therapy
Yeah.
that is helping you move forward from this incident?
Well, I think like the things that I've learned in the education courses, therapy, prior for me, like with drinking, it was more centered around like social interactions. It wasn't really meant, I never really used it as, again, like a stress reliever or an emotional relief. It was more of like a social struggle, meaning, going out and enjoying oneself. One of the things that I think I realized the most, which was like the biggest game changer in terms of like recognizing what was going on in terms of like over drinking in a social situation, was the way that I was like making comparisons and saying like, oh, okay, like you're drinking this, so then I can drink that, like, kind of like matching the situation. And what was most helpful really was the educational course I took, the college course. I kind of learned that it's more that the way alcohol affects you is more than just like, oh, females drink, this amount of drink, males drink this amount of drink. And then it comes down to a lot of different things, genetics for women, where you are in your like menstrual cycle even. Like some people black out, some people don't.
all of these different things. And I guess like my point is that what I realized is the way that I'm tracking how alcohol affects me in a social situation should really be centered on like how I'm doing with alcohol, and not assuming that because the other person seems fine, that I should be fine as well. So one of the things that I determined, or kind of like was starting to recognize and realize, is that for me, I believe I have a much lower tolerance for alcohol than maybe some other people. So not to say that this is the way that I would track my drinking, but just as an example to what I'm saying, like it's almost like someone could have 2 drinks, and the way that they might be impacted by 2 drinks is probably the way I'm going to be impacted by 1. So my tolerance for alcohol, just biologically, I think is a bit lower than I was recognizing, and I think I was putting out an assumption that if someone else seems fine, then I should be fine. But I don't think that that's actually true for me.
So what is your plan for it if you do
Yeah,
decide to have a drink in the future? What is
sure.
your safety plan?
Well, my safety plan around that is really just to only have like 1 drink, to be honest, really 1 drink, and start from there, not starting, not, I'm not saying like start from there like, oh, and then like continue to grow to have more drinks, but I want to be more conscious of the choices that I'm making, and make sure that I'm making those choices again based on myself and not what I'm seeing around me or in my environment, and assuming that that would apply to me. Um, and this again is centered more around when I'm in a social setting. I have also found that my behaviors are different when I'm by myself, because I'm tracking it based off of my own self. And so in that sense, then those would be my behavioral changes. And then, there's obvious stuff that we're not in place, like making sure that I'm not driving, and even if it is like 1 drink. So those things, and assuring that I'm being more cognizant of having alternative means for transportation, regardless of how many drinks I have. And obviously I wouldn't say don't have, because if I don't have it, then I will drive. But yeah. So not just assuming that the night will be okay because I've chosen to have 1 drink or something like that, which kind of was what had happened that night. It was like that. I was going out with 1 friend, was not expecting to have, more than what as much as I had. And I did not have a plan. And by the time I needed a plan, I was not able to make one.
What is your current living situation?
My current living situation is myself, my husband, and my kids, all in our immediate household.
Okay. And do you have a support structure to kind of continue your rehabilitation that you've already undertaken?
Yeah, I actually have a really great support structure. So, so aside from those that live in my household, my father-in-law lives like 2 blocks down the street from us, and then my own parents live an hour away from us. So, in terms of not only support structure in that sense, and then I also have like my neighbor as well directly across the street, who we're all very involved and with each other in the sense that like we have like a strong like neighborhood setting as well. She knows my kids, she comes over, we go over to her place. And so in that sense of immediate needs and immediate support structure, I do have that around when it comes to not only just managing myself, but also support and managing our family.
And if your petition for early termination is denied, how would that impact your life in any way?
I don't think it would really impact my life that much, only because, again, like I had mentioned, like this is the status quo at this point. Like we have the flow going. Like I know what I have to do when. Nothing really changes if it's denied. It's just extended. So it doesn't really feel like it necessarily is going to have like a devastating impact or anything like that. It's just like, again, certain career goals or having like the burden of this in terms of career will just be extended another couple of months. It's not that long.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. So we'll now go to the board. So if the board chair would mind polling board members to see if they have any questions for Ms. Guerrero.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Guerrero, thank you for being here. The board will, if decide to do so, ask you some questions. So if you have any problem with receptions, please let us know. We're here to support you. We want to make sure that you don't struggle with the sound and so forth. So I'll start from my right. So if there are any questions from Abigail Ortega, our board member, I know she's connecting.
Yes, hi. Christine, thank you for being here and sharing with us what you've accomplished right during this time. I'm just curious about what are your current coping strategies? Because I read that you're having no external interactions outside of your family system and just really staying home with your kids and focusing, and just wondering, like, how are you coping?
Well, I guess, like, I don't know if that's totally, I mean, yes, we're very family centered right now because of the age of my kids, but I can't say that that's totally accurate that I'm at like that isolated. My support system mainly is like my family, my neighbors, but you know, we still interact with friends and go out. And throughout this course, you know, I have been in social settings where alcohol was present, people were drinking and stuff. So just to be able to say that I have had experiences and being able to work through being in situations where I'm not drinking, or that I am not as isolated as it might seem having this family setting. But in terms of like coping skills, things that I do, you know, I don't exercising, you know, kind of just like working through setting up like a good routine for myself. Like so again, like I have the support that I need if I need to take space or take a time out to myself to decompress if the day is stressful. I do have other support, like friend supports as well. Like the two of the people that are here today are friends that, you know, my neighbor is a friend, but also I have Janine that is also here as a support, who is a friend. So just reaching out to friends when needed, going on hikes. I mean, just kind of your regular coping skills that like one would use when you need to decompress, Netflix kind of stuff. So I just basically try to work on making sure that if I need the space, I take the space if I'm feeling stressed out. And then again, like I think one of the bigger, I don't know if this is a coping skill, but like one of the bigger things is just over the course of these last years, like being comfortable being in a social setting and saying that like I'm not drinking tonight. That has also been something that has, for me, I guess it's like a kind of like a skill that I developed to not feel like that need to participate and get used to knowing what it's like to not participate and be comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No further questions, Abigail?
No.
No. Okay. We're Susan Freeman. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate hearing your story. You mentioned that one reason that you wanted to end your probation was because you wanted to move forward professionally. And I'm wondering what you mean by that, because I mean, I recall myself having 2 little children and working, and that's all there's time for, working and children, nothing else.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, I would like right now, like I have just been kind of working part-time when it comes to being able to have my own private practice. And, you know, I would like to be able to grow that. And it's not that I cannot grow it, but it would be nice to grow it without being on probation and being in good standing with the board. I also would, you know, like to work towards providing like supervision if possible, which I cannot do right now. I would like to possibly also, at some point, which will happen not within the 8 months, of course, but like, you know, I have aspirations to go back to school for my PhD. I would like to work on not only maybe engaging in private practice, but looking at milieu work as well, whether it's like in a school setting again, or crisis intervention, which I really enjoy. And I'd like to be able to do that while not on probation. So I feel like I'm at a standstill right now. While I can do these things while on probation, it would be nice to be able to present myself as not being on probation.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Justin Hapt.
Hi, yes, thank you, Ms. Guerrero. This is a challenging conversation to have, so we appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a few questions. Ms. Friedman asked the first one about your professional goals. I think I'm a little unclear on what your plans are regarding alcohol in the future. Can you tell us a little bit more about what does alcohol use look like for you moving forward?
Yeah, right now, none. Moving forward after being off probation, I don't really have any plans to use. Now or in the near future, again, like, I feel like I have a lot and enough going on where I don't see where that fits for me. And after being sober for the amount of time that I have been sober, I don't see how it will kind of where the place is. So I'm like not in any rush to like be like, oh, now I can go and drink because I'm off of probation. Like my life is not going to be any different. Like it's still going to be the same. I'm still going to be up all night with kids. Still need to be up during the day. Still going to be working and having things to do, which is totally fine. But again, nothing's really changing for me being on or off probation. My life is still looking the same. And right now I feel really good about where things are at in that category. So I don't really have any plans to drink at this moment or in the near or far future. I think that if I were to decide to drink again, it would be in a very thoughtful way. I would need to make certain plans, or not, but like, I mean, and when I made certain plans, I mean, like to the point of saying like, okay, if I would like to enjoy a glass of wine tonight, like how tired am I? Like, what time am I gonna need to be up and available? So it's not just like, oh, I'm gonna go out and socialize, you know, I'm gonna start drinking again. This is also down to like more minute things like what's going on in the immediate right now for me, what kind of mood am I in, how tired am I, how available do I need to be? And again, like I said, like also not having drinking so long, like I don't know where I'm gonna be at with how it's gonna impact me. So these just are not things that are part of a need for me right now in my life. And having gone so long without drinking, it kind of begs the question of like, do I even really need to drink? because I've gone so long without drinking and things are just perfectly fine without that, without
Yeah.
drinking.
Great, thank you. And I think that clarifies quite a bit for me.
Okay.
I think I'm still a little bit stuck on, I
Sure.
get the sense that there are almost these two versions, these two different narratives coming out of both your discussion and the written documents that you submitted. And on one hand, you're saying, I've been sober and my life won't really change, and I'll likely continue being sober. And on the other hand, you're saying you're misquoted and your quotes are taken out of context, and that you question whether or not this even made you a better therapist. And I'm wondering if you can fit these two pieces together that seem to be telling a different story of what happened.
Sorry, can you clarify your question a little bit? Like, in terms of what you feel does not connect.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say very overtly is, I have been sober, and there is a good chance that I will stay sober.
Right.
I'm also reading you say, maybe this made me a better therapist, and some of what was, some of my quotes that were, you didn't say used against me, but some of my quotes were either misquoted or used out of context. That, to me, doesn't send the message that there's a clear understanding of how you got to where you're at and what it looks like to move forward remaining sober. And so I'm hoping you can fit these two pieces together.
Yeah, so I guess like what I'm not saying that drinking makes me a better therapist. I'm saying, I think what I was trying to convey was the situation that happened, going through something like that, and the having to go through something so difficult and reckon with yourself what's going on, reckon with the emotions that come with it, understanding how to overcome that emotional obstacle for yourself, really deepens your empathetic capacity in a setting in which you have to understand that for your clients and be able to empathize with what they're going through when they have to go through something that's deeply painful for them. So it's not that drinking helps me become a better therapist or having drank helps me become a better therapist. It is the toll of the situation and the understanding of the emotional toll and how I had to work through it that can help me better understand someone else's obstacles and how they do that. And so earlier when I was talking about like the psychological evaluation, and something, and just like those two kind of things being taken out of context, that was really just centered around the fact that I just by trying to voice the state that I was in, which was within 3 months postpartum, while also having a toddler. So that provides a very different kind of mindset when you're being evaluated by someone where they're only talking to you for like a handful of, not even a handful of hours. I think it was like under 3 hours that I had a conversation with her in the midst of being 3 months postpartum, which is very different than my current mindset right now. So if like I were to get reevaluated, it would probably sound and look a lot different. And so I just wanted to speak to that piece, in some of the ways that I felt the report was written. And I don't know if that's answering your question, or maybe you might have like follow-up questions.
No, it absolutely does. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
No more questions.
Thank you, Justin. And Wendy Streck?
Good morning, Ms. Guerrero. And
Hi.
I can tell this is a really emotional situation for you, and we recognize the importance of this hearing for you today. So thank you for being here, and we absolutely recognize, all that you're feeling when you're here.
Sure.
Can you remind me again of your sobriety date?
Yeah, it is, I started being sober, I think like in 2019, when I was pregnant. I became pregnant, I think in June or July, maybe August. no, August, I think it was closer to August with my first child.
Okay. And then since then, you've not had another drink up through today. Okay.
Yeah.
I do want to talk a little bit more. I think my colleague was kind of echoing some concerns that I also was feeling. I want to talk about sort of your plan for situations where you're navigating stress, because you mentioned during your evaluation being 3 months postpartum and having a toddler and working, and sort of life presents all of these challenging situations and stressful situations. So can you talk a little more about your plan for navigating those stressful situations, and also being in circumstances where alcohol is present, and how you've already developed a plan to manage those situations?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, managing the stress that I have when it comes to like my family life. I guess maybe the reason why it feels like I don't have like a clear plan is because that's not something that really leads me to want to drink. I don't I I don't drink because I'm stressed out. Like that's not like my go-to um response. That's not something that I've even really needed or think or want to do. So when you're asking, it's like, how can you not drink if you're feeling stressed out? How can you ensure that it's not going to lead to alcohol use? I guess the reason why I'm not expressing a clear plan about that is because that's not what leads to my alcohol use. I have, again, support system. I have the space. I have the ability to take space when I need it. Um, I don't really find my life to be like as stressful as it may seem, even though like there are stressful moments and there are hard moments. It doesn't imply that I am going to be needing a drink. Like that's just not within my purview of my needs when it comes to alcohol. Now, as I mentioned, um, when it comes to okay, so to handle my stress, right? Like when I am stressed out, again, I take space, I watch Netflix, I go for a walk, I try to have like a gym routine because that makes me feel good about myself. Um, I rely on my support structure, call people to vent, like call my mom if I need a vent, go sit in my neighbor's house for a little bit. You know, like these are just regular coping tools that kind of one does when they're stressed out. For social situations, like I had mentioned, I think that was really where alcohol plays a role for me. And I have been in a number of situations in which people are drinking and have worked on building my muscle and decreasing feelings of insecurity when it comes to saying, like, I'm not drinking tonight or I'm not drinking, period. And so that is something that I now have a greater comfort in. And it's not just a comfort in, it's an appreciation for being able to feel comfortable saying that, so that, you know, I'm not managing and dealing with the impacts of alcohol later, or whether that's a lot or a little bit because it was one drink or three. Um, so for me, it's recognizing that I have an increased confidence and comfort level in going to a social setting and people offering me something to drink and saying like, oh, I'm not drinking, versus maybe managing whether it's peer pressure or my own internal pressure to partake in drinking at social things.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions, and I move to Chris Jones.
Hi, Ms. Guerrero. Thank you for being here.
Hi.
Appreciate your testimony. I do have a couple of questions for you. How would you categorize your DUI? Was it would you call it an isolated incident, or is it a pattern of behavior that culminated in the DUI?
I mean, I believe it was an isolated incident. This is not something that is like my normal way of functioning. It's I have um I have made plans in the past around, oh, I'm going to be drinking tonight, so I have coordinated with a friend on them driving, or spending the night at friends' houses. Not that that's I mean, I'm talking about like my long history, not like immediate, like, just like years, like 5, 6 years, like, like it's not that that this is something that like I'm never thinking about whether I should have a designated driving situation or a safe situation home if I choose to drink. Like, I do think of these things. I did not That did not happen on the night of my DUI. And I believe it really just centered around a lot of factors. Like, I had exercised that morning. I hadn't eaten that whole day. I was expecting to have a bigger meal than what we actually had. The drinks that I had a higher level of content. The beer that we had that night had a higher level of content, and I ended up getting drunk like really quickly, like more than I realized it was going to happen. So, um, it just went from 0 to 60 so quickly. I didn't have time to stop the situation or recognize what was happening in the moment. So I really think not think, like, no, like, it was like a one-time situation, where, um, a mistake was made, and, I can be thankful that that mistake was limited to the way it turned out, right? Like, um, so
Thank you. One other question. You've spoken a lot about, your study and your understanding of the physical impact that alcohol has on you and other people. What else have you learned in addition, or besides the consequences of the DUI? What else have you learned about the impact of alcohol on your life?
on my personal life, or I'm sorry, can you maybe be a little bit more specific, or you just mean in
Sure.
general, really?
If you're kind of reflecting back over the course of, again, not thinking about the consequences that you've had to deal with regards to, the DUI itself, but as you reflect back and kind of look at the relationship that you have with alcohol and the impact that it has on your life, or had on your life up until that point.
Yeah. I mean, I think like if I reflect back like all the way to like my whole entire history with alcohol, um, I think it's always centered on social. Like, it's always been a some I've always drank under social situations, social settings that where there have been, again, plenty, and like down to like my undergrad and college, even high school, there have been times where it's all social. It was that's the way alcohol formulated into my life. And so I think that is where there was something there that didn't really um change, or that I didn't really like understand about like the way that alcohol played a role for me that led to this situation. And like I had mentioned, like even though it was just like one person that I was with that night, like that person's tolerance was not mine. And so being in a quote unquote social setting, like again, the lesson learned for me is that like I need, am, and will be doing, and pay with, if and when choosing to drink, like pay attention to my social decision making early on when I first stopped drinking and I was in social situations. I felt very both taken aback by like the way others were drinking and like thinking like, wow, like this is what I would be participating in right now. You know, and recognizing that like that probably is not like a good fit for me. Then like progressing to like, you know, being like, okay, like I'm in this social space and I'm not drinking. And that's fine for me, but it was more about like, again, the pressures of wanting to participate with other people than it was about like me drinking or not drinking. And um being comfortable with saying, no, I'm not drinking. It wasn't like the fact that I of needing alcohol, it was the participating in a social situation where alcohol was present, and me being able to separate my own individuality of what I needed or what was okay and what my limits were with what the environment was presenting. So that for me is the biggest change moving forward, and always being able to keep that in mind, that the focus is not on what's happening socially and seeing like what's okay for other people socially in terms of drinking is something that I want to participate in and like enjoy myself, keeping in mind like what is going to be right and okay for me and what my limits and boundaries are not always the same as what other people's are.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. We're moving to Kelly Ranasinghe, if there are any questions.
Hello, Ms. Guerrero. Thank you very much for coming today. I'd like to ask you a question about one of the statements in your petition versus what you've testified to.
Okay.
You've stated, I have come to understand that I have a much lower tolerance and I'm more quickly impacted by alcohol than I previously understood myself to be. However, in your testimony, you've also stated that you've used alcohol significantly all the way back to high school, including high school, college, and in your professional life. I guess my question as to the credibility of your testimony from where I'm sitting is, why did you have this epiphany as to your lower tolerance now as opposed to years ago?
Yeah, I think it's like it was more around like recognizing like the educational piece of it. Like there were just pieces that I was missing in understanding like internally how alcohol like works and affects me, and assuming that that's what's happening for other people. Maybe like that was like a conversation that was not going on. I think like maybe like the best example that I could give you was before I think before I was on probation with the BBS. I had gone to Germany. I was pregnant. I wasn't drinking. I was with my husband and my sister and her husband. They were drinking. All three of them were drinking. And seeing how many drinks that my sister had on one of those nights, and then them waking up the next day fine, and also remembering what was happening, like that was a very important moment for me, because the next day I was like recognizing that if I had had that many drinks, like I probably would have blacked out. I would have definitely been hungover. Like I think I was not comparing things in that way before, because either, especially like let's say high school, college, right? We're either all hungover because we all drank a lot, or some people were, some people weren't, and I'm not doing those comparisons. Like I'm not thinking about like how my own alcohol intake is impacting me compared to how it's impacting other people, and I'm not thinking about other people's tolerance levels, you know. And then you get past that point where you're not really drinking at that level. You're going out for like a dinner with a friend, maybe having like one or two drinks, or that's it. And so then I feel like there was like this gap, this space and gap, where at first we're all doing a lot of drinking, so we're all having like reactions, hangovers in the way that you would expect. And then there's this gap, right, where you kind of grow up a little bit. You're not drinking as much, so you're not thinking about how your tolerance is different from other people because
And so
you don't have
let me
to.
stop you there. This, your comparisons from yourself to other people really
Mhm.
began after the DUI.
Yeah. In the
Okay.
sense of understanding, that my my tolerance level, the way alcohol impacts me is not the same as it impacts everybody else. I assume that alcohol impacts everybody in the same way it would impact me, right? Like, okay, I'm a female, you're a female. We both drink the same thing. We should both be feeling about the same. Like, if I have 5 drinks and you have 5 drinks, we're probably both gonna black out. Like, that's not true. That's not accurate. That's not true for me, and I didn't have to put a lot of thought into that prior to this in terms of deeply thinking like what's going on with me? How come alcohol is doing this to me? Because I was in the bubble of drinking in the same way other people were drinking.
Okay.
Which was at first, you know, being a college student, and drinking with others where we're all kind of like over drinking or binge drinking as college students some might do, and then transitioning into a time in my life where I'm really not drinking that much. So again, like I'm not having to say like, oh, why am I feeling this and you're not? Because I'm not drinking so much to the point where I have to recognize that.
Thank you, Ms. Guerrero. I appreciate your testimony.
Sure.
Thank you. John Savek?
Thank you. Hey, how are you?
Hi.
Hi. Take a breath. We're all here to work together.
Yeah.
I do have a question from early on in our conversation today, and that was when Ms. Crawford asked you about a safety plan. And in that conversation at that moment, you made a statement similar to the idea that part of your safety plan would be choosing to only have one drink. Can you expand on that concept and what that actually means to you in real life?
Yeah, like so like again, like I would like to be thoughtful in my social situations because as I feel like discussed at length, that is the category in which, that's my moment of growth, you can call it. So if it gets to the point where I decide, I would like to see how alcohol can fit into my life again and have a drink. It's saying like having one drink in a social situation and um that would be that. Like so that the same way I had to practice choosing not to drink and being like comfortable with that, I feel like I'd have to do the same thing if I were choosing to drink and say like, okay, I'm going to choose to drink in this social situation and my safety plan is to not go beyond this and check in with myself and see how I feel and do this repeatedly over time to make sure that I feel confident and comfortable in, you know, um, in my decisions, in my decision making, and saying like, okay, this is how I am drinking when I drink.
Okay. Kind of a left turn now. What would you say are your strengths as an LCSW?
Like as a practitioner, I feel like I'm very relational based. Sorry, hold on. I need to take off my headphones because they are losing their. Okay, hello?
We can hear you.
Okay. I think my strengths as a practitioner are being able to build a strong and solid relationship with my clients, to where they are comfortable sharing things that they are not typically sharing outside of the environment. I feel like I can say that I know I'm building strong relationships with my clients because for the past 2.5 years, the only way that I've been able to keep my practice afloat, or not been able to, but the only way I have been keeping my practice afloat is through word of mouth referrals. I don't have an online presence. I do not have like at all. Like I don't have like a website. I'm not on like Psychology Today or anything, but I've always been able to maintain like a handful of clients or more through referrals from families or people that I work with. I'm not on, I haven't gone to like groups, like they have like therapy groups, you know, where you can go and say like other therapists are looking for referrals for certain clients. You go, oh, I would like that one. Like, can you send them my information? I literally just started doing that this past week, but throughout this whole pandemic, like it's all been word of mouth. So to me, that says that one of my strengths is not only people feeling like I'm someone that they would like to refer to others, but that I've made a big enough impact in what they're offering that they would like to share that with their community. So
do you believe your probation has interfered with those strengths in any way?
Not really. I think that's more of like a confidence thing in the sense of there's always that like underhanging, like, oh man, like if I have to speak to this, right? Like it doesn't feel good. I can, but it doesn't necessarily like feel good to have that hanging over your head when you are it's not like something that you want to when you have to discuss with the client, you know? Like I feel like that's kind of like something that's more personal. So that doesn't really set up, I don't think, like the healthiest relationship with a client to have to like share that personal information. So it would be nice to know that that's not there. Of course, people can look it up online. I understand that. And I won't be able to speak to that then. But this is just more personal.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joseph. Dr. Walker, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Ms. Guerrero.
Hi.
How are you doing right now?
Good. It's just, you know.
Yeah, well, we appreciate your testimony this morning. You're being very candid in addressing the board's questions, and I just want to reiterate that we value your time this morning, and again, appreciate you taking on this emotional situation the way that you carried yourself thus far. I have one question, and I'm going to also ask you to extend from your earlier testimony.
Okay.
Ms. Crawford did ask you a question, and I hope you recall it. She asked you, what would the impact of the board's decision be if we denied your petition for early termination of probation? Do you recall that question?
I do.
Okay, so I want to just spin that a little bit.
Sure.
How would the board's decision impact you if we accepted your petition?
Oh, I would be like elated. It'd be nice. You know, it would feel good to know that, I guess, like it would feel good to know that that it could be seen that like I've put in the work, I've followed all the guidelines, and that I could just be like reinstated.
I'm just going to just take a breath with you right now. You mentioned that the state of the probation, you refer to it as status quo, and then you feel like you're in a holding pattern.
Yeah.
And from what I'm hearing, your petition is based on that, feeling that, and you feel stuck and you want to be unstuck.
Yeah.
And you mentioned one clear, specific reason, and that is to pursue your aspirations for career advancement, growing your private practice and things like that. But with an acceptance of your petition, would it mean more than that to you and other than what you just said? Because when you answered earlier that if we denied it, that there would be very little impact, almost none. So let me be clear on that.
Yeah,
Help
no.
me to be clear.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like, it would feel really good for this to be approved emotionally, right? Like, it would feel validating for the work that I put in so far. It would be nice to be able to not have to think or manage DUI stuff on a daily basis. I feel like as hard as this is to talk about, and as hard as this is to go through, I really have like moved on from it like in my daily life. So I feel like being on probation doesn't really fit like my needs right now. I understand that there are consequences to actions, and this was a great like lesson learned and chance for deeper self-reflection. But I don't know, I'm not sure like what else I can get out of it at this point. And that's why it feels like if I were to do it another 8 months, it's kind of like same difference. But like if I were to get approval for it to end, it would feel again like nice to be seen that this is not a mandate that's needed for me anymore.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Walker and Eleanor Uribe. Thank you.
Good morning.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, I wanted to just backtrack a little. You had mentioned that stress doesn't lead to your alcohol use, but you said that what leads to your alcohol use is social situations, right? And I'm just wondering, I'm just curious, you said you had mentioned before about how, your things used to have changed as you were in high school and then college and now that you're a mom. So it sounds like mostly you're home and doing some part-time work. Can you tell us how, besides that, your social interactions, how are they maybe now versus before?
How my social situations or interactions are fitting now versus before?
Yes.
I mean, I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, I feel like before I really only had I had freedom, I guess, like freedom to go home after if I'm drinking in a social situation, like I have the freedom to go home and like sleep all day and do whatever I want any day. Like all my time was free and for myself to choose to do what I want when I want to do it. And that's not true now, right? Like I have to be very thoughtful with my time, almost calculated with my time. I have to be fully present for my family. I cannot choose to just check out if I want to, like even if I need space, if I need some support, it's still planned. I can't just be like, oh, you know what? I'm gone. I'm gonna go for a run. It doesn't work like that. So it's not really just about like I think like these things would have shifted in the way let's say I were able to drink these last 2 years, the way I would drink, when I would drink, how I would drink, going to social situations would have to change regardless of being on probation with the VBS and not being able to drink or not. Like, you know, even if I wanted to have a lot to drink, I'm not just having to plan like how am I getting home. I have to plan like, you know, to ensure that like someone would need to be present for my family, for my kids. And if that can't be me, I would need to plan that. That's not a choice I would make, but I'm just saying that, you know, that's how social interactions change at this point, when it comes to incorporating drinking, into them. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Okay, let me ask it a different question.
Yeah.
So, given everything that you've gone through, if you had a client that came to you with similar situation, so they were a professional and they became intoxicated and got a DUI and was basically on probation, what kind of feedback would you give them?
I think, I don't know that I would give them feedback, but I probably would want to help them just kind of figure out, like, in the same way that I think we've discussed today, like how that happened, like how did they see things in their life like leading up to that moment, like even questions of being asked that I feel like I've answered, like your relationship with alcohol that kind of opened the door for the potential of the scenario. I would want them to be able to kind of just like analyze that for themselves. And again, like we've discussed today, like what does that mean for them moving forward and how are they going to remember and apply the things that they have discovered about themselves in the process. I think it's not necessarily about feedback. It's more about like the internalization of like deeper understanding about yourself and what you're going to do with that discovery.
Okay, I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. The floor is yours for the conclusion and the final statements. Thank you.
So before we move forward, I believe Ms. Guerrero had 3 witnesses. So I'd like to check in with the board if they would like to take a break before we call those witnesses and hear their testimony.
Yes, I thank you for offering that. I'll take advantage of it. 10 minutes will be sufficient for us. And so right now is 10:45, so we're reconvening at 10:55. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We will be off the record until 10:55.
Okay, thank you again, Your Honor, for allowing us to break. We are resuming our proceedings right now. The time is 10:58 a.m. And Your Honor, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. We will be back on the record. So before we go further, I just want to confirm with the chair, all of the members who were present before are still present after the break, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so Ms. Guerrero, you're still under oath. I want to give you an opportunity to do something formally called redirect. This is your opportunity to add any facts to your testimony that you want to clarify after being questioned by the board members and by Ms. Crawford. Is there anything else you'd like to add to your testimony?
I don't think so, other than, you know, just being clear that
that the incident that happened, was not an indicator of my lifestyle, and that even though it is not an indicator of my lifestyle, I think as I've expressed, it doesn't mean that there were no lessons learned, no points of growth, or anything like that, and that being able to move forward from this, while this is very difficult to sit in front of my peers and talk about in this way, again, like on my daily life, this is not, alcohol does not play a role for me on my daily life, and there's no intention for it to do so just because this probation has ended. That will be more of a result of changes in my life that really are not necessarily connected to being on probation. And while this has created like an obligation to not drink, this was not why there is a need to not drink.
Thank you, Ms. Guerrero. And I understand that you have 3 witnesses that you'd like to call today. Could you tell me which one you would like to call first? And if I could get the assistance of our WebEx host in adding that person to be able to speak once Ms. Guerrero identifies them.
Anyone is fine first.
Could you tell us the name so that we can have our host
Okay, sure.
unmute them?
Yeah, we can just start with Christian.
This is the moderator, Christian Alzubi, I believe is how the name is pronounced, is on the line with us and able to unmute at will.
Hi, I'm Christian Alzubi. I'm in LMFT. And
Okay, I'm gonna stop you for a second because I have to swear you in.
Oh,
I
okay,
don't
I'm
see
sorry.
I don't see your video. Are you participating only
Yeah.
with audio?
I'm here.
Oh, there we go. Okay, now I can see you. Thank you. So before you testify, I need to swear you in so we can consider your testimony as evidence. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes,
Thank you. Please state and spell your full name for the record.
it's Christian Alzubi. Christian, Christian. Alzubi is AL, Z as in zebra, U, B like boy, I. And I'm at LMFT.
Thank you, Ms. Alzubi. So, Ms. Guerrero, would you like to ask Ms. Alzubi some questions?
Sure. Maybe if you could just talk about our relationship over the last 2 years, the role that you play in like what you understand my capabilities to be in this category.
Okay. All right, Christine. I have been seeing Christine for approximately 2 years. And in those 2 years, we've been meeting weekly. And what we have done a lot of work about just issues that she had with maybe family members and bringing up topics that really caused her uncomfortable discussion. It was an uncomfortable discussion. So she brought up a lot of themes where she was able to work through not only herself, but through issues with her family and her husband, that I've seen such a progression in her acknowledging her role in some of these issues and having an open communication with her family is one of her greatest coping. They are solid people that are backing her up.
And what's your understanding of like my relationship with alcohol?
I have not experienced you drinking at all. So from what you have told me in the past, alcohol has not played a big role. You've acknowledged at one time you did have this incident and you had a problem with it, but it has not been an ongoing issue with you.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like in our sessions that like I'm expressing like needs to drink and like
No.
or
No, you have never expressed that you miss drinking, that you can't wait to get off probation to drink. None of that has ever come up.
And I know that like in our work together, some of the space has been spent on like me volunteering to do clinical supervision, given that I have the space weekly to talk to another therapist. So if maybe you can speak to like, you know, my ability to practice throughout this, as well as, you know,
Yeah.
your
We have touched upon some of her clinical issues with her current clients or past clients, and the clients are what I'm seeing is they're very engaged with her. She's a big advocate for their needs. She is somebody that provides a lot of comfort to her clients and is clinically responsible for what she does with them.
Then is there anything that you would feel like would be like a concern for me not to be on probation?
I think what being on probation has limited your ability to expand your business, and that has caused you concern. And
But like, but like, do you see any problems that like, can you like forecast any like challenges or issues or struggles that might be present if they were to take me off probation?
No, not at all. I don't see anything. I think this has been a really good opportunity, a learning experience for you, and what you don't want to have happen in the future.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add.
No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Ms. Al-Zubi, I now allow the Deputy Attorney General and the board members to ask you some questions as well.
Sure.
So Ms. Crawford, do you have any questions for Ms. Al-Zubi?
Just briefly, Ms. Al-Zubi, you wrote in your letter to the board, I believe it was dated June 30th of 2022. Do you recall writing a letter?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And you mentioned that there has been therapeutic improvement around self-acceptance, self-expression, and management of emotions. Can you one by one describe to us what the work that was required around self-acceptance, self-expression, and management of emotions?
Well, it's basically what I just said, is that she's been very introspective during the time that we've been meeting, where she acknowledges her mistakes and roles in the issues that have come up in her life. She's been introspective about some of the trauma in her past that could have led to all these problems currently. And I've seen just positive changes in her ability to start to acknowledge her role in the problem. So it's basically that I've seen a lot of improvement in that.
So as far as that greater self-acceptance, what was an issue that was presented to you about that, where you did some work around self-acceptance for her?
I think it had to do with issues with her biological family, where it didn't feel like she was being heard correctly. And so we did a lot of collateral work with her own family, and just being able to be forthcoming with what her needs were was really important for her developing better coping skills with her family.
And by this collaborative work you did with the family, is this her family of origin or her husband and children?
Family of origin issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about management of emotions? What was an issue that presented that you started dealing with that?
I saw a lot of management for management with her postpartum depression. She really struggled after her second child, and was aware of the difficulties that she had, not only dealing with a baby during a pandemic, but the issues that came up with her husband. And we did a lot of work with her husband in session over him getting a better understanding of of what she was experiencing with her postpartum depression with her second child and not getting a lot of support.
And Ms. Alzubi, have you been able to listen to Ms. Guerrero's testimony when she was testifying?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And so there was definitely and continues to be some emotion that she's experiencing. And instead of us assuming that this is a difficult situation for her and that's why she's emotional, do you have some insight into why it is difficult for her to be here and that she has been expressing, teariness and
absolutely. I think it comes from a place of not wanting to be put in this position. Some of it you could even think of shameful in the sense that she's worked really hard to get where she is professionally, and then she made this mistake. And I think that all the regrets, the shame, all of that is mixed in with what her testimony was today.
Well, thank you so much for that. I don't have any further questions.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Mr. Chair, if you wouldn't mind polling the board to see if they have any questions for Ms. Alzubi.
I can certainly ask. I'm looking around to see if there are any questions. Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Alzubi, this is your opportunity to basically have some redirect if there's any other testimony you'd like to give before we excuse you.
No, not at this time.
Thank you. You may be excused, Ms. Alzubi. Okay. Ms. Guerrero, who would you like to call as your next witness?
Yeah, if Roxanne can come.
Okay. Could I get the moderator from WebEx to unmute? What's Roxanne's last name?
Corral. Or no, Romel, sorry.
Your Honor, I'm going to go off camera for just a minute to deal with, I need to plug in my computer.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Fine. All right. Ms. Rommel, I see your presence on WebEx. I don't see you unmuted and I don't see video. If you're able to unmute, that would be the first step.
This is the moderator. First off, I also do not see Ms. Rommel unmuted, but we do have a call-in user who has a hand up. It is possible that they've connected their audio via phone. Bear with us just a moment, please.
Okay, thank you.
All right, dial-in user 4, please dial *6 to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Is this Roxanne Rommel?
This is. I'm sorry. For some reason, my computer does not like this particular website, so I cannot be on video, and I'm calling in. So the best I can do. I apologize.
That's fine, Ms. Rommel. So before you testify, I need to swear you in so I can consider your testimony under oath. I can't see you, but can you please raise your right hand?
Yes, it's raised.
Thank you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state and spell your full name for the record.
My name is Roxanne Rommel. It's R-O-X-A-N-N-E. Last name is R-O-M-E-L-L.
Thank you, Ms. Rommel. Ms. Guerrero, if you wouldn't mind asking Ms. Rommel some questions, please.
Yeah, so I don't know, Roxanne, if you just wanted to kind of speak to today. I know that you know what's going on.
I would be happy to if that's okay with the board. I've known Ms. Guerrero for, I was trying to think this morning, somewhere between 3 and 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
We live very close to each other. I'm directly across the street, and we, as Ms. Guerrero has said, we're a close neighborhood. A lot of us have lived there for many, many years. I also am a practicing attorney, and I represent foster children in Alameda County. Part of my responsibility, not only do I represent children, but I sit on our family treatment court. And that is a collaborative practice court that allows parents whose children have come into the system because of substance abuse, be in recovery and get support from a collaborative team. There's a member for every stakeholder in the cases. My last credential is I am a recovering alcoholic. I have been sober for 25. Sorry, I'm getting a message from. I've been sober for over 25 years. So this is a subject matter that I am intimately familiar with, both on a personal level and a professional level. I have watched Ms. Guerrero raise her children. I have to say, when there was a question about the terrible twos, I have never seen a more patient parent and a parent who speaks to her children not as if they're adults, but at their level, but in a way that they understand. She's one of the most phenomenal parents I have ever witnessed. Now, granted, I work in a job that I don't maybe see the best of the parents, so I'll give you that. But Ms. Guerrero and her husband are really fabulous. When Ms. Guerrero came to me and asked me if I would write a letter and be present today, I was really honored that she felt comfortable enough to share this with me. And I don't think at that point we had discussed my substance abuse history. And so it gave us an opportunity to talk about ways that I can support her as somebody who's been sober for a really long time. I have seen Ms. Guerrero in family events. From what I have personally witnessed, I have never seen her intoxicated. She can enjoy herself without, having a cocktail or two. I know her family. I know the support she gets. And I know she knows that I'm a support too. And I would like to say to the board that if you do grant her petition for early termination, that I give you my word that I will be her support system. Like she mentioned, sometimes she just comes across the street. I don't have children. I live alone, so our households are much different. She comes in and gets her space. I have to say that without disclosing confidentiality, I have used her as a sounding board because of her skills as a clinical social worker. And she has given me such valuable advice on a couple of really tricky cases. She's got strong skills. I don't know what else to tell you other than I really think that she has earned the right to ask for her probation to be terminated.
Thank you, Roxanne.
Ms. Guerrero, do you have any more questions for Ms. Ramel?
No, thank you so much.
Thank you. So Ms. Ramel, I'm now going to see if Ms. Crawford has any questions for you.
Okay.
I do not have any questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. And if I could go to the board chair, does the board have any questions for Ms. Ramel?
Scanning the room to see if there are any questions. I think Kelly Ranasinghe is asking a question. Go ahead.
Ms. Ramel, I just have one question. You stated that you've observed Ms. Guerrero in numerous neighborhood gatherings and you've never seen her intoxicated. Ms. Ramel, have you ever seen her drink during any of these neighborhood gatherings?
That's a really good question. No, as a matter of fact, so we do, like we have neighborhood block parties. And now that I think of it, no.
Got it. Thank you so much. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. I believe, Your Honor, we don't have any questions from the board.
Okay. And Ms. Ramel, before I let you go, if there's anything else you'd like to add to your testimony, now is the time.
Oh, not that I can think of. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Ramel. You may be excused. All right. Now your final witness, Ms. Guerrera.
Yes. Janine, please.
All right.
Yes, here.
Ms. Davis, I see you. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. Please state and spell your full name for the record.
Janine Ariano Davis. JeannineArellano-Davis.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Ms. Guerrero, if you would please ask Ms. Davis some questions.
Probably just same thing.
Okay. So I am a licensed clinical social worker. I have known Christine in both a professional and a personal capacity for approximately 7 years. I've gotten to know her quite well over these years, and I know her to be a person of integrity. I believe she's honest with herself, and particularly about this mistake. I understand this to be an isolated incident and a lapse in judgment that I know she is remorseful, about. I knew Christine prior to this event, and I have not known her to abuse substances or known them to impact her life or her career outside of this event occurring. Yeah, in my social situations with Christine, alcohol has never been part of that, except the exception of my wedding, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't, I would never, I don't even know if she drank that day because it was obviously nothing that, was an issue at all. Yeah. So any other questions, Christine, or?
Just maybe like what your thoughts are on my, ability to practice moving forward. If your thoughts on being a clinician.
I have no concerns about your ability to practice, and I think that it would be, fair that you were taken off of this. Can't think of the term, but yeah, I've not ever had any concerns about your ability to practice. I said this event is all I've ever known in terms of any concerns that I've ever had is when you told me that this had happened, but I have no concerns. I think that your ability to practice is not impacted, and that that you've learned from this mistake, or that you would not this wouldn't occur again.
I wonder, like, so you are someone that like we talk about like what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if you can like just maybe speak to how you think I handle stress.
Oh yeah. Well, definitely talk about it. I mean, we've done a lot of that, and that's certainly been a huge part of our relationship is being able to share, right? And I know that all the things that you mentioned earlier, those are things that you utilize in terms of, your coping. I know you have, social outlets. I know you have your family. I know you have other friends. Your husband, I know that you, like I say, utilize all those coping strategies. And yeah, I know that alcohol, I've never heard that alcohol has been part of how you have used to cope with any of your stress. That's never come up. I've never been concerned about that.
Yeah. Do you think that like, do you also like think any, do you foresee like any concerns of like me not having like the restrictions of being on probation moving forward when it comes to like my behaviors or changes that, you know.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I take driving under the influence seriously, and if I believed you'd repeat that mistake, I wouldn't have agreed to support you in this effort. And I don't believe you constitute a danger, to the public. And I think that, being able to regain your license, is something that obviously, I mean, I hear that you're going to just feel better about yourself, and I think you should be able to, professionally, that utilize, your license, as desired. And maybe there's not a reason right now for for this being so important that it's reinstated, but it might, next week, and there's no reason for you to not have it instated.
Thank you.
Ms. Guerrero, are those all your questions for Ms. Davis?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Crawford, do you have any questions for Ms. Davis?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, if you wouldn't mind seeing if the board has any questions for Ms. Davis.
It doesn't look like, so I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Ms. Davis, you may be excused. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that is the end of what I have for you, Ms. Guerrero. Is there anything else that you need to add?
I don't think so. I think we covered it.
Okay. So that will conclude the petition hearing in this matter. This case will be submitted and the record is closed. We'll be off the record in this matter and can proceed to the next petition. Thank you, Ms. Guerrero.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, would the board like to take a break before we go to the next petition or move directly to it?
I suggested just quick 5 minutes and then we can resume. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. We will be off the record until then.
And we'll be back 11:32.
Mr. Pospisil, could you please pronounce your last name for me?
It's Pospisil.
Pospisil.
Pischel. The second S is an SH sound.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Pospisil, I heard you tell the moderator you don't have any witnesses. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Do you have any exhibits in addition to what the Attorney General and the board already have in their possession?
No, I do not.
Okay. I think that we are ready to begin then. We are back on the record in the matter of the petition for early termination of probation filed by Gregory A. Pospisil, agency case number 2002019002339, OAH case number 2022100260. May I please take the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General?
Good morning. Anahita Crawford, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California, pursuant to Government Code Section 11522.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. And we have Mr. Pospisil present and representing himself. Mr. Pospisil, I'd like to confirm on the record that you knew you had the right to retain counsel in this matter at your own expense and wish to proceed representing yourself.
That is correct.
Thank you. So before you go further, I want to swear you in so the board can consider your testimony as evidence. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. So were you able to hear the instructions given in the previous matter?
Yes, I was. I might need to be reminded.
Okay, so I'm going to go through them again just so everything is clear. So in this proceeding, the board is concerned with hearing about any rehabilitation you have done since your license was disciplined. Ms. Crawford will first present the petition package and provide a background of the matter. After that, you'll have an opportunity to make your presentation. I'd like to remind you that the board has had the benefit of reading your petition package, and you do not have to repeat items within the package. You'll then be subject to questioning by Ms. Crawford and the board. Following the close of this hearing and the following one, the board will go into closed session to deliberate. You will not receive a decision today. It will be mailed in the future. Do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Thank you. So, Ms. Crawford, if you wouldn't mind introducing the petition package.
Yes, Your Honor. Exhibit 1 is the memo to the board from the probation analyst that we would like to mark and introduce at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Pospisil, do you have any objections to Exhibit 1?
No.
Thank you. Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Exhibit 2 is the petitioner's petition for early termination of probation and any attachments in support I would like to introduce at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Pospisil, do you have any objections to Exhibit 2?
No.
Thank you. Exhibit 2 is admitted.
Exhibit 3 is a stipulated settlement and disciplinary order as well as the underlying accusation in this matter. I'd like to mark and introduce that at this time.
Mr. Pospisil, do you have any objections to Exhibit 3?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Exhibit 4 is a certification of license history for the petitioner that we would like to introduce.
Mr. Pospisil, do you have any objections to Exhibit 4?
No.
Thank you. Exhibit 4 is admitted.
And Exhibit 5 is a notice of hearing of today's hearing date. We would like that marked and introduced.
Mr. Pospisil, do you have any objections to Exhibit 5?
No.
Thank you. Exhibit 5 is admitted.
Your Honor, I don't have any other evidence to present at this time, and I can proceed with a brief background of the case.
Yes, please.
On December 19th of 2018, the petitioner was convicted of driving under the influence of alcohol. His blood alcohol level was a 0.21. The petitioner admitted that he had veered into another lane and hit another driver from behind. A stipulated settlement was entered into effective February 12th of 2020, placing petitioner on probation for 5 years with standard and optional terms of condition. Petitioner's probation is set to expire on February 11th of 2025. The petitioner was ordered to submit to biological fluid testing, participate in a dependency support program, and pay costs in the amount of $1,080. The petitioner is compliant in all aspects of his probation. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. So, Mr. Pospisil, we'll now go to you for presentation of your case. You may testify on your own behalf, and you're reminded again that the board has had the benefit of reading your petition package, so you don't need to repeat anything in that package. So you don't need to ask yourself questions. Feel free to testify in the narrative.
Right. I just wanted to say thank you to the board for this opportunity to appear today. Since the events that have resulted in my being here today, I've been extremely remorseful, and I've really taken the opportunity to restructure my life, to simplify. I've incorporated some elements that I use on a daily basis, starting in the morning with mindfulness, meditation, and prayer. I've incorporated exercise and a healthy diet into my life, and I've really relied on the support of others. And I have a good support system. I am in touch with them daily. And I'm using this moment and the event that got me here as a place to continue on from. As difficult as the situation was, and it still brings up some discomfort right now talking about it, I'm using it as a catalyst for change and growth. And I think it's all working to make me a better person and a better therapist and a better person on this planet.
Mr. Pospisil, do you have more testimony you'd like to provide, or should I go to questioning?
I guess in addition to what I put in the letter, I'm part of a weekly support group with other colleagues in recovery, friends from my past, and we check in with each other every week. I check in with my coworkers on a daily basis. I am engaged in peer consultation. I have a really good work environment. And in addition to everything else in the letter, I'm just really committed to continuing a life that does not have a place for alcohol.
Okay, so I'll go to Ms. Crawford. Do you have any questions?
I do. Mr. Pospisil, your DUI conviction indicated that you had a blood alcohol level of 0.21, which is 2.5 times the legal limit approximately. Were you drinking in excess during the time surrounding your DUI arrest?
Yes, obviously I had been. I really wasn't aware of how the alcohol was impacting me. Again, I had been exercising, I'd been outside, I'd been working. It just caught up with me in a very unexpected way. It caught me off guard. And it's my intention to never allow that to happen again.
And let me clarify. I mean, in the months or weeks prior to your arrest, had you had an increased amount of drinking where you were able to have a 0.21 blood alcohol level and still be somewhat lucid enough to drive a vehicle, albeit poorly?
No, I had not. This was not a pattern of behavior on my part. It was an incident outside of my normal. So no, it was an isolated incident.
How often would you say that you would have any alcohol prior to your arrest?
Occasional social drinker, weekends. But not every weekend, not for long periods of time during the weekend, just an occasional use of alcohol socially.
And how much do you think you would drink during social situations?
I would say no more than two cocktails or 2 drinks.
Was it different on this day, the day of the arrest?
It appears so because it caught up with me. I'm not really sure how much that day.
Okay.
I wasn't counting. I wasn't contemplating this happening or allowing for that. So I guess I wasn't aware.
Mm-hmm. And have you, since the date of your arrest, consumed any alcohol?
Since the date of the arrest, I had one final just taste of champagne, and that is my sober date of December 27th, 2018.
So was it on the 26th that you had a glass of champagne?
Oh, it would be the 27th, so the 28th would be the next day, yeah.
Okay. Were you celebrating anything, or what was the reason for that?
The reason for that, really good question. I just wanted a sober date that wasn't associated with the DUI. And the final week of December includes my birthday, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's. I wanted to add my sober date into a week of things I could celebrate. And I also wanted to make the choice to stop using alcohol before the stipulation went into effect.
Okay.
So I wanted to own that.
So other than, and these are 2 big things, other than a DUI conviction and probation that mandated you not drink, do you have any other reasons why you're choosing not to drink?
Well, absolutely. Health reasons. At a certain point, as you continue the aging process, you become more and more aware of how alcohol impacts the body and aging. And I just want to be moving forward, and I've started this already, just taking better care of myself. I also, in the past 4 years, have just discovered that I like how it feels without having alcohol as part of my life, not in my system. Like having everything that being sober has allowed. Mental clarity, feeling better, more energy. I like how this feels. So I'm motivated to continue that as well for personal reasons beyond the stipulation.
And what do you see your relationship with alcohol being in the long term, into the future?
In the long term, it's going to be something I was familiar with, and I know that can have great consequences for me and for others, and it's a relationship I'm no longer continuing with. I'm going to continue. I'm going to
No, go
continue
ahead.
my abstinence and sobriety and end my relationship with alcohol in regard to using it. I've established an identity as someone who does not drink, and I don't want to return to the old identity.
You've given us certainly strong reasons for why you intend to no longer drink. What did you learn from the rehabilitation courses that were part of your DUI conviction as well as the probation terms that you can share?
I learned that there's so many ways that alcohol can impact you. It's very insidious, and that to be a problem drinker or have a problematic relationship with alcohol doesn't mean that you drink every day throughout the day. It can be just weekends. It's more the mental compulsion that occurs with drinking that drives the addiction. And so it was, I guess what I've learned is how to move away from that, how to step away and allow myself to have the clarity where it's not an obsession of the mind. Not that it was, if it was just something I look forward to on weekends. But as I said, I've now established a lifestyle without it. My friends know I don't drink. My colleagues certainly know that. So it's just the new normal. I'm just really regretful it took such a crisis for this to happen. But I can also be grateful that it happened and I'm here today.
Tell us about those support structures that you have in place.
Throughout the years, I have, of course, made friends, and friends would introduce themselves to me, or I'd get to know them and know that they were in AA. And so when this happened, I immediately went through my phone and started calling them going, hey, this just happened. And they were all inclusive. Hey, let's stay connected. Let's talk. So they're part of my weekly support group. We just check in with each other, accountability, support that way. My colleagues are all very supportive. I was received with a great deal of empathy and compassion. I was embraced into my current work situation. And we just support each other on a daily basis, whether or not we talk about alcohol. We just support each other as colleagues and coworkers and friends.
So these persons that you knew in AA, these were people that you knew before you even had your arrest?
Yeah, from way back.
I see.
Yeah, friends that I've retained from college, from graduate school, etc. Yeah.
And did you participate in AA as part of your probation?
Oh, yes, I did. I had to go to weekly support groups 3 times a week. So
Is that something you're I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's okay. Yes, I'm continuing with that.
Do you find that you reach out to any persons in the AA group, or do you feel that your friends from AA groups in the past are a better source of support for you?
I have reached out to people in the AA group. I guess my core group are the friends from the past that are now friends in my present. They're my core. As well as just one more thing, a lot of my colleagues are in recovery too, so I have them.
What work did you do in the AA group?
I met with sponsor, I worked the steps, basically followed the directives of what was asked of me.
Did you work all of the steps?
Mm-hmm, I did.
Did you find it helpful at all?
Well, I did. It's certainly an eye-opening experience, and I think that the step work is something that can be helpful for everyone. I'm sure everybody qualifies for one program or another, so I did find it helpful. Again, this whole experience has just allowed me to take a break and take a look at my life, become introspective, learn more about myself, and grow and develop.
Okay. Now, you are asking for termination about halfway through your probation period, about 2.5 years early. Why are you asking for an early termination at this point?
At this point, I feel that I have, because I became sober before the stipulation actually started. So I think at 46 months, I have incorporated a sober life. And again, I'm repeating that it's one that I do plan to continue with. My plan for alcohol moving forward is to not use it. Why I'm asking for early release is I think the foundations have been laid. I'm not planning to do anything differently than I'm doing right now. There is some element of career development and growth that could come by having the stipulation or probation ended. I'd be able to take on the role of a supervisor here at work and help the business grow if we were able to bring on interns for me to oversee. I'd also be able to, on occasion, go out in behalf and do public speaking, and I guess people in attendance could get CEs once I'm able to do that. I haven't even looked into it yet because I know that's not a possibility right now. And also in the event that, upward mobility, continuing to work, I personally just want people to look at my license number and not see probation after it. I want to be a story of somebody who got through to the other side, experienced a crisis, did what was required, and got through, so I can have that story to tell as well.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
I guess one other thing I would say, it's I also, the freedom of being able to set my schedule and know that when I wake up in the morning, and if I have to test, I wouldn't have to try to possibly rearrange clients or whatever I do at work to make that happen. There'd be a certain just ease about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're now going to go to the board to see if they have any questions. Mr. Chair, if you wouldn't mind polling the board.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, before I start, just for the record that our board member, John Sovek, has recused himself from this case at 11:39 a.m. So I'm starting from my left this time. If there are any questions from Eleanor Uribe. Thank you.
Sorry, I actually don't have any questions right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Walker.
Thank you. And Mr. Popsicle? Am I
yes.
close?
That's close.
I did not say popsicle, I promise you. I did not say that.
Okay.
I did my best. Thank you, and forgive me if I didn't say it or pronounce it correctly. Thank you for your testimony today. I just have one question. I think you clearly stated what the impact would be if the board were to grant your petition for early termination of probation. So let me just flip that.
Okay.
What would you say the impact would be if the board's decision was to not grant it or deny it?
Oh, disappointment. Just a momentary bout of sadness, but just perseverance and continuing to do on with what is asked and required. I would have an understandable feeling of disappointment, but we'll carry on and continue.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. And Kelly Ranasinghe, any questions?
Yes, I just have a few questions. Mr. Pospisil, did you indicate you had worked all the steps in AA?
Yeah, yes, sir.
And you've been sober for 46 months, and your strategic plan is to basically continue with full sobriety?
Yes.
Okay. Nothing further. Thank you.
Oh, that's it? Okay. Thank you. Chris Jones.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I don't have any further questions here. Max Disposti, and now Wendy Stack.
Hi, Mr. Pospisil. Just wanted to follow up on some of the questions of Board Member Ranasinghe. You had talked about some folks from AA were part of your ongoing support group, and it wasn't quite clear to me whether you continue to also plan to have be a part of your support system going forward.
Yes, I do.
Okay. And then you also talked about when you worked the steps. Was there a particular step that you found most impactful as part of your journey?
Well, the one that comes up for me right now was step one, because I entered the program with the severity of the DUI. And so just sorting through and recognizing the true powerlessness I had over alcohol. And because of that and a bad decision I made, that my life wasn't manageable, just unpacking all of that. And just, because I talked about that over and over and over again, especially when I went to all my early meetings, what got you here? And that was my share. So it was just a continual restatement of those events that, I still carry with me. I'm glad that it's receding further into my past, but that was very impactful also. Step 4, character defects, resentments, that was impactful. Just, looking at past relationships, past events, just anything that had brought me to my current place in time, it was all impactful, but those two steps come up for me right now.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing and appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. I believe we have Justin Heft.
Hi, yes. Thank you for being here. I have 3 questions. So the first one is, you've talked about having to navigate these challenging conversations with your colleagues and self-disclosing what happened to you. Tell us a little bit about how you navigate that conversation with your clients.
Oh, I don't talk about my personal situation with my clients.
So just to be clear, do you tell your clients that you're on probation?
No, I do not. I work for an agency, and so when they come in, I don't disclose that.
Has any client ever brought up the question of whether you're on probation or not?
No, sir, no.
Okay. So, okay. My second question, you've expressed a lot of remorse throughout what you wrote, and certainly it comes up in your letters of support, how remorseful you are. I don't know if remorse is maybe important for being a better quality therapist and delivering better work, but you have alluded to being a better therapist because of this. Can you elaborate on what exactly allows that to happen?
I can. Being in the position to having gone through an acknowledgement of problematic behavior and then going into recovery gives me now a personal insight and awareness that I didn't have before. So when clients come in and share with me their struggles or what they're currently navigating in their life, I'm able to reflect, and I have a different lens through which I see them, meet with them, relate with them. Anybody who shares with me that they have had a challenge or a crisis with the law, I'm right there in empathy. I don't have to disclose that for my empathy to kick in even more. I mean, I get it. And so I just feel that I am much more open, relatable. I lean in, and I really fully and strongly support. I guess through this crisis and the challenges I've overcome, it's taken down any kind of barrier that might have existed between me and clients, because now I get it. I can be of service to them. I can help them, work with them in a way that I guess I wasn't able to before. I can't do a side-by-side comparison, but I know I've changed. So I feel it coming through in the room.
Yeah, great, thank you. And I think that segues into my last question. So I want you to expand a little bit on the barriers to insight for the last, 10 years or so you've been practicing. That's a long time to just recently have this reservoir of insight that you've tapped into. Can you tell us a little bit about Why now?
Well, I guess before now, I didn't realize there might have been a barrier there. But when I'm asked to look at now versus then, I can see that I've shifted, I've had a paradigm change. So maybe something I wasn't fully aware of in the past, I can now see that it's lowered, and just in my overall approach and just how I relate to individuals who are in recovery, who they're in program, who are meeting challenges with addiction. You know, I'm able to work with somebody without having had their experience, but now I have mine, and that is something that I have and that I use and that I think is now an asset. I just didn't have that before. So that's, you know, I guess I didn't know what I didn't know. And I think I was still effective during those 10 years.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Justin. And would like to see if Susan Freeman has any questions.
I have one question. Thank you so much for being here and for telling us what we need to hear. I know that's hard to share all of that, but I'm thinking that for the amount of time that you've been in practice as an MFT, that surely somebody that's come into your office has had the problem in their family of one of the spouses being a drinker and not knowing how to deal with that. Is that accurate?
Oh, yes, it is. It is accurate. And, you know, through...
And do you share with them your story? Because obviously you have something to share with them.
I have not yet shared that story in session. But even before my own introduction to program and recovery, I knew the resources to be able to present to somebody. And again, I've always worked as part of a team, so it's always been collaborative. I know there are therapists who self-disclose as part of their introduction. I have not yet done that. I've not really been asked.
Well, I'm not clear when you say you haven't been asked, but if someone's discussing their particular situation, wouldn't it make them feel more at home if they knew that you had something similar to share?
Okay, yes, I can do that, but I don't necessarily go into my story.
Right.
Okay, so what I would say, I can say, what's been helpful for myself and others is going to meetings. I talk about the ability to go in and share your story in a room that's free of judgment, how much courage that takes, the strength, hope, and encouragement that comes from others. I talk all about how the program works and what the meetings are like. I guess I just wanted to be clear, I don't necessarily share my story, but I do not hide the fact that I'm in recovery. Does that make sense? Did that help?
Yes, totally. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, just for the record, Susan, for our public member, just as a note for a record, actually, our clinical therapists don't share their personal stories in clinical settings, so that's why our petition is referring to that as not to be part of the conversation in that setting, in particular in that setting. So I appreciate that. Just for the record, I want to make sure that we don't mislead folks. But thank you, Susan. And Abigail Ortega, any questions?
Yes, 2 questions. Just to be clear, so have you notified your clients at all of your probation status in any form?
No, but my employers know. And so the clients that I see come in through the agency.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question, you mentioned that this was a one-time incident, and from this incident, you now have this greater awareness, right, which has now led you on this path of sobriety. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just wondering, do you have a plan should, in this journey you have another, moment of drinking, which, which could happen, right, or could not happen, but do you have a plan of, should that happen, this is what I would do to
who would I contact, or what would be my plan should that happen?
Okay, so first, my plan is to not be in a position where I'd have to take it further. But in the event I was triggered and felt a need to drink or a desire or felt compelled to use alcohol in any way, I would immediately go through my phone list and call a number of the people on my team. I would walk down the hall and talk to my employer. I would talk to any number of my peers who are with me in spirit right now in this room. Absolutely, I talked to my partner. I wouldn't be quiet if something was going on that was activating me or moving me in the direction to use alcohol. So I do have a plan. And my plan would be to do whatever it takes not to drink again.
Got that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I believe that was the last question from the board, Your Honor.
Thank you. So, Mr. Pospisil, if there's anything else you'd like to add while you're still under oath, any other facts you'd like the board to consider, now's the time.
No, just thank you again for this position, or the opportunity to just be heard and to let you get to know me a little bit better. I just want to reiterate that I'm firmly committed to recovery, firmly committed to continuing the work as being the best therapist and person I can be. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pospisil.
Thank you.
That concludes the petition hearing in this matter. The case is submitted and the record is closed. We are off the record in this matter and will proceed to the next petition.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, would you like to take a lunch break now or move straight into the next petition?
I believe we're ready to move forward. I just would like to call John Savek back, please. Thank you. Our legal counsel is doing that. So if you give us just a second, but yeah, we can proceed.
Judge Wall,
Yes,
I
Ms.
apologize. I was on mute when I was speaking, so you didn't hear me, and we may have lost Mr. Pospisil. I did have a couple of follow-up questions based on his
Did you need me back?
testimony and the. I do see you. Based on his testimony and the questions of the board, may I be given an opportunity to ask those follow-up questions?
Yes, let me just, for the record, state that we're going to reopen the record because I said it was closed. We will reopen the record to take additional follow-up questions from Ms. Crawford. Thank you for coming back, Mr. Pospisil.
Thank you, Mr. Pospisil. I just had really one point of clarification. It might be in two questions. You were asked a couple of times about whether you have notified your clients about your probationary status, and you've stated that you work for an agency and that they're aware of your probationary status.
Yeah.
By that response, are you saying that the clients belong to the agency and therefore it's the agency that has the responsibility to provide that information should they deem to do so?
Yes, I do not accept clients. Our intake department, the treatment place I work at, they bring in the clients, and I work here as a paid clinician on staff.
Okay.
So
And
they have all the information and they oversee everything.
so my second question to that is, if in fact it is your responsibility to divulge that information to your clients, under what circumstances, or do you even know under what circumstances you would be required to divulge that information to the client?
No, I guess I don't know under what circumstances I would be required.
Okay, fair enough. So I wanted to ask you about your stipulated settlement. It does say under condition 14 that you shall notify clients about the terms and conditions of your probation if those terms are going to affect therapy or confidentiality of records. So that would include if you needed to have a supervisor that was present or would be reviewing their records. Have you ever been in that situation with your clients?
No, I've not.
Okay. And you haven't been restricted from seeing male, female, children, nothing of that sort?
Absolutely not. No
Okay.
restrictions.
And those would be the circumstances, just to let you know, some of the circumstances under which you would be required to notify your patients.
And that would be women and children, you said?
I'm sorry?
Under what circumstances would I be required to inform them?
Examples would be if you were limited in your practice to only seeing a certain population of clients,
Okay.
or let's say there was restrictions on or supervision requirements, or some kind of confidentiality of patients would have to be shared with somebody else. You would be obligated to share with those clients that you're on probation,
Okay.
and that's why some of those things would be happening.
Sure. Thank you for the clarification, but I'm not under any restrictions in regard to who I can or cannot see.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't have
Thank
anything
you.
further.
Okay.
Okay, so I will again, Mr. Pospisil, if you have any redirect you'd like to add after questioning.
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, so that again concludes the petition hearing in this matter. The case is submitted and the record is closed. We are off the record and we'll proceed to the next petition. Mr. Chair, we have.
Thank you. Thank you.
other
We
board
can. Sorry, I missed you. You were talking. Say it again, Your Honor.
Mr. Chair, do we have the other board member who recused himself in the last hearing?
Yes, he's just returning right now, so we're ready to move forward with our next petitioner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And if I could have the moderator on WebEx add the next petitioner to the panel members?
This is the moderator. At the moment, I do not see our next petitioner. I'm going to call for Minnie.
I see her in attendees.
Oh, there
It's
we
Ms.
are.
Vanega.
Here we go.
All right. Now, Ms. Vanega, once I get you added, if you could please turn on your video so we could see you as well. And we'll need you to unmute your audio as well. I still have you as muted.
Hi, can you hear and see me?
I can hear you. I cannot yet see you. Is that a problem on my end? Ms. Crawford, are you able? Oh, the video popped up. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Could you please pronounce your name for me so I can say it properly?
Sure, it's Minnie Vanega.
Vanega. Okay, thank you, Ms. Vanega. So, Ms. Vanega, do you have any papers other than the exhibits that you offered to the Ms. Crawford and the board?
No, I don't, but I didn't know until last night when I was reading over the details of the instructions for today that I could submit a letter from my therapist. So for early termination, that, for her to, be on board with that. And she said that she could get it in by 5 today. Would that be able to be submitted? If not, then that's okay as well.
Let me check with Ms. Crawford. I haven't had this come up when I'm sitting with the board before. Ms. Crawford, are we allowed to extend the record to submit additional documents when we're sitting with the board?
That's probably a good question for DCA counsel, since I know documents are supposed to be in within a certain period of time, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Is the council present?
I'm here. Can you hear me? This is Sabina.
Yes. Are we allowed to extend the record until 5 p.m. today, or possibly a little later, to allow Ms. Vanega to submit an additional letter?
Well, unfortunately, the board's going to have to make a decision in closed session immediately following this hearing, so it might be a little difficult to hold the record open that long. We have other business to conduct in closed session as well. So unless it's here momentarily via email within the next few minutes, I'm hearing from the board that we can't hold it open that long and postpone our just deliberations that long.
Understood. All right, Ms. Vanega, does that impact whether or not you'll be able to submit it?
No, not at all. I just thought I'd ask, and no, it's not a problem at all. I can move forward.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to the board counsel. Ms. Vanega, do you have any witnesses other than yourself testifying today?
No, I do not.
Okay. And were you able to hear my instructions to the past 2 petitioners?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any questions before we begin?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are on the record in the matter of petition for early termination of probation filed by Minnie Fanega, agency case number 200-201-700-2000, OAH case number 2022-100255. May I please take the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General for the record, please.
Anahita Crawford, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the State of California pursuant to Government Code Section 11522.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. And we have Ms. Fanega present and representing herself. Ms. Fanega, I'd like to confirm that you're aware you could hire counsel at your own expense and you wish to represent yourself today.
Yes, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so before we go any further, I need to swear you in so we can consider your testimony as evidence. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. So I'm just going to repeat some instructions that you might have heard in the past proceeding. This proceeding is concerned with any rehabilitation since your license, discipline. Ms. Crawford will first present your petition package and a background of the matter. After that, you'll have an opportunity to make your presentation. A reminder that the board has had the benefit of reading your petition package and you do not have to repeat anything in that package. Then you'll be subject to questioning by Ms. Crawford and the board. Following today's hearing, the board will go into closed session to deliberate. You will not receive a decision today. It will be mailed in the future. Do you have any questions about that, Ms. Fanega?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so at this time, we will go to Ms. Crawford to present the petition package.
The first exhibit is a memo to the board from the probation analyst. Would like that marked and introduced.
Ms. Fanega, do you have any objections to Exhibit 1?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Exhibit 2 is the petition for modification of penalty and attachments in support that we would like marked and introduced.
Ms. Fanega, do you have any objections to Exhibit 2?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Exhibit 2 is admitted.
Exhibit 3 is the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, as well as the underlying accusation in this matter. We would like that marked and introduced.
Ms. Fanega, do you have any objections to admission of Exhibit 3?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Exhibit 4 is the certification of registration history pertaining to this petitioner. We'd like to mark and introduce that as well.
Ms. Fanega, do you have any objections to Exhibit 4?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Exhibit 4 is admitted.
And Exhibit 5 is the notification of hearing to the petitioner of today's hearing date that we would like marked and introduced.
Ms. Fanega, do you have any objections to Exhibit 5?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Exhibit 5 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. I do not have any additional evidence to present, and I can proceed with a brief background of the case.
Thank you.
The board conducted an audit of the petitioner's continuing education on February 1st of 2017 by requesting proof of completion of 36 continuing education hours for the period of February 1st, 2015 through January 31st of 2017. The petitioner replied by providing a certificate for 3 hours in ethics and boundary issues, dated simply 2016. The auditor for the board called the provider of the ethics and boundary issues course to confirm that the class was in fact taken by the petitioner, and was advised that while petitioner signed up for the class on December 12th of 2016, she didn't complete the course until February 6th of 2017, just days after receiving the board's audit letter, and that the completion date had definitely been altered on the certificate after it was issued to the petitioner. An accusation was filed on July 9th of 2018 in which petitioner was charged with unprofessional conduct for her fraudulent and dishonest acts, for misrepresenting her education qualifications to the board, and for securing her license renewal by fraud. The petitioner entered into a stipulated settlement, which became effective on March 28th, 2019, where she was placed on probation for 3 years with standard terms and conditions and ordered to pay costs in the amount of $4,085. The petitioner is compliant in all aspects of her probation. Due to periods of tolling, petitioner's probation is set to expire on November 24th, 2023. Therefore, a year remains on her probationary period. The petitioner is requesting a termination of her weekly therapy sessions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. So we'll now go to you, Ms. Vanega. This is your opportunity to present your case. You may testify on your own behalf, and you're reminded again that the board has had the benefit of reading your petition package, so you don't need to repeat items within it. You don't need to ask yourself questions. You may testify in the narrative. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to thank you, Your Honor, and Deputy Attorney General and the board for this opportunity. I anticipated this moment to be able to speak and be heard regarding my case. I do want to start with a little bit of background. Well, before that, I would like to say that I initially requested for a petition for modification of penalty for discontinuing weekly therapy sessions sometime in the mid-year. And because of the locations of these meetings, it sort of got pushed further along. And now we're here in November, which is closer to my 2-year probationary time. And so then I added in for early termination. And so that's kind of where it falls basically with what I'm requesting today. But I do want to provide a little bit of background information because I have been practicing as a mental health professional for over 20 years now. I have been both an MFT intern and a licensed MFT for the past 20 years, as I was saying. And basically, you know, before I became licensed, I was working in nonprofit. I was working with in the Department of Mental Health, county contracted agencies, working with children and families. And I was always in really good standing with all the agencies I've worked for. And I had a good reputation for good clinical skills and documentation skills. I had no prior disciplinary actions against me in any of my employment or with the law. And I would say that I've always, you know, approached my work with excellence and always did feel like the best that I could do with working with my clients. And then, so I also wanted to say that in the last 6 years, because this had occurred in 2016 with the audit, there was some major changes happening in my life, and I had a lot more on my plate than I was aware was too stressful for me to sort of manage. And so in around 2015, I was a mom of two. Well, I am a mom of two, but they were 4 and 2 years old, so 2 children under 5. And I also started to be a clinician in a group practice, which was one of my biggest dreams as a licensed marriage and family therapist. So I did that, and then I also was undergoing, you know, some stress with my eldest child, who was having some developmental problems and exhibiting some problems in the home and in his school environment, and that was very difficult for, you know, everyone in the family. And I realized I was also getting very, very sick often, and it probably contributed to my level of stress. I was getting a lot of upper respiratory infections, and there was actually a health scare to rule out cancer. And so just a lot was happening at that time. And so when I was audited in 2017, I am very shameful to admit that I, you know, altered the certificate of the 3 units. When I was preparing the certificates, I thought I had completed everything. It was 36 units, and the 33 was valid. Everything was fine. And in the last 3 units, I was trying to print the certificate and realized that I had not completed the course. So it's an online course that you need to complete the exam in order to get a certificate. And so when I was audited, I realized that I had not completed that exam. And so, you know, I was very, I think I was not honest with myself with forgetting to complete that exam. I thought, well, I started it on time. I read all the information in that course. And if anything, I was dishonest with myself. And I think I wanted a quick fix. And I thought, let me give the board what they want. And I am very, embarrassed by what I have done. And it does not reflect who I am as a person. Currently, I feel like I'm in such a different place in my life. It's been 6 years since then. When the accusations came, mailed to me, and I was devastated. I felt like I had such a good reputation in the field, and I didn't know if I could really recover from what was happening. So I took some time off. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I would get so emotional over this. And I sort of reevaluated my life, and I took about, I think, a couple of years, in fact, and I was able to see that I needed to manage my stress a lot better, and my coping skills. And when I felt ready to return to practice, I was in a much different place. While I was tolling, before the tolling, I decided to go into therapy on my own terms. So I was doing that for about maybe 6 to 8 months. And then when the therapy had to begin for my probationary time to start, I did another 2 years of therapy, weekly therapy. And so really, I wanted to discontinue weekly therapy, not because I didn't find it helpful. I have found it extremely helpful, but I didn't think that I needed the weekly therapy sessions. I felt like I did a lot of work, kind of met our goals. And if anything, it was a good source of support for me, but I would maybe do it every other week or maybe monthly. And so, and that was my initial request to modify the probationary stipulations. So, and now that we're in 2 years, like I said, I'm in such a different place, and I have a very strong support system in place. I am so aware of the level of stress. I slow things down. I'm very intentional with, how I schedule my work and being available to my family. And honestly, right now, with being in private practice, I'm only seeing about 8 to 10 clients a week. And my desire to end probation early is to be able to expand my practice in a way that I can get on insurance panels, because with the probation status, it's very difficult to get on any insurance panels. So I feel like I can serve the community a lot more, maybe get more variety of clients coming in. And with things going on with the economy now, it's hard for people to pay out of pocket. So that would be one thing. And another thing is to be able to be certified in some certain specialties, whether it's working with couples or as a trauma therapist. I can't be certified with my probationary status. And so that would be another thing that I would like to try to achieve, once everything is cleared with the board.
Ms. Finnegan, is there anything else you'd like to add before I allow Ms. Crawford to ask you some questions?
No, I think that's it. I'm open to questions, though.
Okay. Ms. Crawford, would you like to ask some questions?
Yes, please. Do you know what would have been the ramifications from you submitting your CE units with 3 units short?
No, not at all. I didn't even think of the ramification of submitting that certificate. What I wish I would have done was to submit it the way it was, which was only probably 6 days from the end of my renewal period, and or call the board and let them know that I had forgotten to complete that course.
Okay, so that was actually my question was, did you know what would happen if you submitted your CE units with those 3 units short? If you had just submitted 33 hours, do you know what would have happened to your license?
No, I don't. I think just more recently, kind of, reviewing my case and trying to prepare for this meeting, I think I came across something where I would still be disciplined. And I could be wrong, but I believe that I would still be disciplined because I didn't complete the 36 hours for my renewal. And I understand why that's, in place and, for the many years prior. And even since then, I have completed all of my units of continuing education.
So at the time when you submitted that fraudulent certificate, you didn't know if you'd even have any consequences if you had just submitted the legitimate certificates?
No, I didn't know. I didn't know any of that. I didn't even know that auditing was a thing. I didn't know any of my clinician friends. I hadn't known about it from what I learned in school. I didn't know that auditing was even a thing. Like I said, I was never worried about being audited because I had always completed my CEUs. But I'm not sure if I'm answering your question correctly. I'm sorry.
No, you've answered it. So I guess my follow-up to that would be if you didn't even think there would be any consequence to being short 3 units, why would you take such a rather egregious action of lying about 3 units that you didn't take in time?
I think as I have worked, through looking at my own flaws and have done a lot of introspection, I'm not sure if I understand the question. I'm sorry. Why did I correct it if I didn't think there was a ramification? Is that the question? I'm sorry.
So you said that you didn't even consider that there would be any ramifications to you submitting 33 units instead of 36 units, correct? You didn't even consider if there would be any negative impact to your license, right?
No, I mean, I knew that 36 units is what's needed for a renewal period. So I did know that that was required. So I was trying to do the right thing by giving, the board what they had requested in the audit. But I knew that when I missed the 3 units, that it was my fault, and I was trying to cover up for my mistake.
Right, but did you know what would happen if you didn't submit 36 units instead of 33 units? Do you know what would have happened to your license if you had just submitted the 33 units? Did you know then?
I hadn't thought about it. No, I just knew that I had to do the right thing and give the board what they requested because it was an audit.
Okay. So when considering that there's a requirement for 36 units and you only had 33, did you consider that providing them with an altered certificate would be far worse than just being 3 units shy?
No, I don't think I was very irrational in my thinking at the time. I thought I would give the board what they wanted. And I think part of the work I've done in therapy is, meeting everybody else's needs and not my own. And I felt that I sacrificed myself in a sense to give the board what they needed.
But you didn't think of calling the board at that time and saying, I'm 3 units shy, what do I do?
No, of course. No. And of course I think of it after it occurred. I thought, why didn't I just do that? Right. And I didn't think of it at the time. And I apologize, and I think that was a big mistake on my end.
So is it your testimony today that because of the stressors you were under, that resulted in you taking this irrational step of lying to the board versus working with the board about that 3 units that you were shy of?
That's a good question. I was overwhelmed, and you know, back then versus now, I didn't have the support in my life to feel like I can collaborate with others to help them understand my mistakes. And unfortunately, that played out in this situation.
Do you remember your thought process if if that thought crossed your mind? Do you remember your thought process of whether it would be better to work to submit your units 33 instead of 36, or provide this fraudulent document? Did you consider, should I submit 33 units instead of 36, or should I lie to the board? Did you consider that question before you took your action?
No, I did not.
And what was the deciding moment for you where you decided it would be better to just provide the board with a fraudulent document instead of just providing the board with the truth that you had not finished all of your CE units by 3 units? Why did you decide it would be better to provide them with a fraudulent document than just to say, I've been overwhelmed and I didn't get a chance to finish all my units?
I understand that question now, and I understand that thought process now. But back then, when I was gathering everything, I was in between clients in the group practice. I felt like this is something I needed to do, take care of within the 30 days. And it was just one other thing that I needed to do. I had so many things on my plate, and I regret it tremendously. I understand what you're coming from, but I think in that moment, I acted impulsively, and I don't even recognize myself to the why I would do something like that. I wish once again that I had contacted the board and been honest. And I think I was playing some tricks in my mind, thinking, well, I didn't do anything wrong. I started it and really read the majority of the online course and had forgotten to take the exam, which I knew I would have passed. So I think I was playing something in my mind justifying that, no, I started it on time and I just forgot. And I just was not honest enough with myself to say, you know what, you made a mistake and you need to let the board know.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Okay, so I'll now go to the board. If the chair wouldn't mind polling the board members for any questions for Ms. Vanega.
Thank you, Your Honor. And we're here from the board. I'll start from my right, Abigail Ortega, if there are any questions.
Yes. One question. Ms. Vanega, wondering, how do you view your relationship with the board today?
I don't feel like I have any animosity or anything of that sort. I do fully understand the reason why this had to take place because, you know, it's 36 hours that's required for renewal, and I didn't fulfill that. And so I understand why they are monitoring me under practice to make sure that I don't make anything that I'm not deceptive or making any kind of errors of any related sort. So I am, you know, I'm okay with the board.
Okay. And do you feel that you can reach out if you have questions, or if there's anything that's unclear, that it's a partnership?
I think for that question. Definitely. I think this is a lesson that I learned where I wish I would have reached out and been honest and felt like I could have been heard. Um, and I don't think I have any apprehensions in that regard going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Susan Freeman?
Thank you so much for being here. I know it's really difficult for you going back over this time that you regret so much. And I just have one question, and I think you did touch on this, but I'm asking you again. You said back then I didn't have the support in my life that I needed. What is it that you have now that you need, that you needed?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Thank you so much for asking. You know, as a new mom and balancing work and motherhood and marriage, and we're also moving at that time in 2016. I feel like from what has happened, I've spoken to my colleagues, I've spoken to the owner of the group practice, and I've spoken to very close friends and family of what has occurred. And I realized that the transparency is so liberating, right? And so my relationships now are so much stronger. I've intentionally set up support systems in my life. Where I meet up with friends on a regular basis. I actively attend my church and get involved in the church and my relationships with the fellow believers. And I've accessed therapy to help me to kind of see what I'm missing in my ability to get support in relationships, because I feel that in relationships, with friendships and of that sort. I'm more of like kind of the giver and, meeting everyone else's needs. And I think what I've learned is I need to also understand what my needs are. And whether it's through these relationships that I've cultivated, healthier relationships, and or just being aware on a daily basis what my needs are, whether it's a day where I have for myself, I take a couple of days off, or when the kids are in school, I'm not seeing clients. I'm just home and I'm resting and I'm doing the things that I enjoy and the things that are fulfilling to me. So I have a better relationship with myself, in fact, through all of this.
Thanks very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Justin Haft.
Hi, yes, thank you. I want to echo that, the thanks as well for being here, because it's a challenging conversation to have. It's good to know that you feel like this transparency is liberating and that you're able to reach out to the board to get your questions asked. And I'm hoping that you can help me with this sticking point that I'm struggling with. So I'm hearing you say that you felt overwhelmed and now you have more coping skills, and being honest has been really helpful. And I'm also hearing you say, well, I was maybe dishonest with myself that I changed the date to when I started it. But you changed the date, unless I'm reading this incorrectly, to December 12th, I think.
Yes.
And I don't expect you to remember
And
all
I'm
the
so
dates
glad
right
you,
now.
no, that's a very good point, because I was so careless that I wrote the date that I thought I started. So my intention really wasn't to say, hey, this is what I'm planning to do. I'm going to miss, I'm not going to complete this course.
Yeah.
And if something happens, I'm going to change the date to the start date. I didn't even know when the start date was. I estimated when I think I started it. And I'm so
And I can
sorry
sympathize
about
with that, because I also just said the wrong date in what I just said. It was December 9th. But I just want to be clear that that your telling of events is that you wrote the date, what you thought, the date you thought you started, not a specific date that you had clear evidence that you had already done most of it. Is that correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I did recall that it was around that time that I started the course, and that was the date that I had used.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wendy Strack.
Yes, thank you. I just have one question with respect to your original request to either terminate or modify the therapy session. So if if your probation was terminated, would you continue therapy, and if so, at what frequency?
Yes, that's an excellent question. I am very interested in continuing therapy. Right now, I'm able to have therapy with my insurance. I just don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to do that with my insurance. So that's one of the factors. But I found it to be very supportive. I did work through a lot in the beginning, and then over time, as I've met my goals and sort of got as much as I could out of it, I didn't think there was a need for weekly therapy, and my therapist also agreed. So if my request is granted, I would continue probably biweekly, and or, even ask my therapist what she thinks is appropriate. And I have no issues with initiating therapy at a later point. I've accessed it throughout my life, and I'd be interested in doing marital counseling as well with my husband, just to improve our relationship and get the kind of the support that would be important for me. So I've asked my probation worker if I could, if the couples therapy could be included in the requirement for weekly therapy, and it wasn't. So I would maybe focus on that going forward.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. And Chris Jones.
Hi, thank you for being here. I just have a clarifying question for you. Did I hear correctly that you're asking to have your probation completely terminated versus the request to have the weekly therapy reduced?
Yes, so thank you so much for asking. It seems like one kind of, will overpower the other, right? Like if I do early termination, then of course I will no longer be required to do the weekly therapy. So I think that one is the one that I'm ultimately asking for, is early termination.
For early termination. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly, are there any questions?
Good morning, Ms. Venega. Thank you so much for coming. You were licensed as an LMFT in 2011, but your testimony today is that you didn't know auditing was a thing. Is that correct?
Yes.
And your testimony today is also that you did not know what the board would have done if you had just called them up and said, hey, I have 33 instead of 36 units. Is that right?
I think the question was asked is, at the time, did I know what they would have done? And I didn't even have that thought, unfortunately.
Yeah. And you also stated you were under a lot of stress, you were very irrational in your thinking, you acted impulsively, and you don't even recognize to yourself why you did that, and you wish you had contacted the board. May I ask, at this point in time, do you hold yourself accountable for committing fraud?
Absolutely. And I would never do it in the future, and I have no record of any kind of fraud or criminal activity in my past.
So that was actually my next question. Let's say that something happens in the future. Your kid's school is calling, you're in the office, an insurance company is calling, asking you to verify documents. You have two clients that are texting you, and you have a client that's ready for his next appointment. And the insurance company calls and says, we need you to verify these documents right now. Can you just send it to us? And there's a stack of documents on your desk that you haven't done. What would you do, Ms. Venega?
I would not rush to provide them anything until I'm in sound mind to be able to provide them what they needed and wanted.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Slavek.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions as well. Thank you for being here today. And we all know this is an anxiety-producing situation, so just let's go with it and see what happens. Quick question for you to start. So I'm really confused about some of these timelines. I heard Ms. Crawford trying to, lay them out a little bit more effectively for all of us to hear, and there are some things that really don't make sense in my brain right now. So from what I'm understanding from the disciplinary history that I'm reading and testimony today is that this certificate was you started on December 9th, 2016. when you realized you hadn't finished it, you put the December 2016 in as a start date when you altered the document. Would that be correct?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. So yes, I didn't look on the website of where I was taking the online course when I started at all. It wasn't my intention to be deceptive, and I know that's hard to understand, but I think I wanted to show that I had begun the course. I had begun the course, and that was the date that I thought I began the course.
Do you know when your license renewal date is?
Yes.
And could you tell me what that is?
Currently?
Yeah.
Yes, January 31st, 2023.
Okay, so January 31st is your normal renewal date.
Yes, and,
Okay.
and that's a good point, because at that time, I did not know it was January 31st. I thought it was January 1st.
Okay. So then you got the request from the board with the audit, and you responded to it. They reached out to see Youth for Less. They looked at that. But then the next thing from the board started coming in on 2018, requested an explanation from you, the petitioner, as to what had happened. And in that, you wrote back, and this is a year later, that you put in the date upon which you began the course and believed to have finished was sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's in my documentation right here. This is a year later from when this whole process started.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about at the time you were overwhelmed, at the time when this happened, you had a lot going on. But a year later, you were still responding to the board as if this was something that was potentially okay. And I'm a little bit confused by that. This is a year later.
Mm-hmm.
Was the overwhelm still there? Were you still kind of like swimming upstream? What was you had a chance to correct your response at that time and you did not. Can you tell me what may have been happening at that time?
I'm not sure what the correct response would have been. I responded to what I had done, if that makes sense. I don't know if the board was asking me why I had done what I'd done. I think the board was asking what I had done, and that is what I had done. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. I'm sorry.
So what I'm curious about is a year later, perhaps the overwhelm may have shifted or changed. You had a response to say, I did this action, it is incorrect. What do we need to do to take care of this? You had a chance in that moment in those responses. I only have limited access to your documentation, but it doesn't state in any way that it felt that you, at that opportunity, took responsibility and said, yes, I altered this document, I did it on this date, what do I need to try and clean up this action? I'm not seeing anything like that in this year later response.
You know, when I was devastated when I received accusations. I didn't feel there was any sort of discussion of what could be done to correct it. I felt judged. I felt it was punitive. I was contacted by a lawyer. I wasn't contacted by anyone from the board. And that's not to say it was anyone's fault, but that was what I was experiencing. I felt like I needed to explain what I had done, but I didn't think it was an open discussion for how to repair what I had done.
Okay. And then following with Mr. Rangasinghe's questioning, as therapists, we are required to keep a lot of documentation going. You're saying that you're looking to hopefully get onto insurance panels, which requires a lot of very specific documentation. And I'm curious, do you feel that you are at a place where it won't be tempting to enter something just to get it done, or that it's just, there's so much concern on my side about this idea of keeping accurate documentation. Where do you feel you are at in that journey?
That's a very good question, and I understand your concern, but getting on insurance panels is just one of the things that I'm interested in. I have a pretty successful practice without insurance panels. I was kicked off of insurance panels because of probationary status. I would like to get on maybe one or two. Right now in my practice, I have a staff, someone working for me who helps with appointments and setting appointments, rescheduling appointments. I would probably access someone like her or someone else to help with these kinds of insurance paperwork. Because I don't think that I'm particularly, that's just not my strength, I guess.
And you are aware that even if you have someone else do this documentation for you, ultimately you are the one responsible for all of that documentation.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't consider myself a dishonest person or a deceptive person at all. I don't think that what has happened reflects my character.
And that is not the inference from my questions. I'm just really trying to make sure that the public will be protected in this process.
Absolutely.
And
No, I understand.
And there's one final curiosity I have. You've used a certain phrase multiple times in your testimony today, and that is, I want to give the board what they want. What does that phrase mean?
I'm not sure if I used it, currently. I think back then it wasn't really about the board. It could have been, my friend needed this and I would like to give her what she needed, or my kids, they're pulling on you when they're so young, and give them what they need and provide all their needs. So it really has nothing to do with the board particularly. It was just at that moment when they needed something that I couldn't provide, it became just kind of this whirlwind for me to just be able to provide something, to give you guys something that was requested of me. And but I don't have that point of view now of the board or of any companies that needed something from me.
Okay. Thank you so much for your testimony today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Savaks, and Dr. Walker, if there are any questions.
Thank you kindly. Hello. How are you doing?
Hi, good, thank you.
Good. I'm just going to take a breath with you, Ms. Fanega. I appreciate your time and your testimony today. We value what we've read about your situation and everything that we've heard today. And so if you could just help me to be clear on the reason and factors for your petition, it would be greatly appreciated. I feel like I've gotten lost in translation in some of the things that I've heard you say in regards to why you want to modify your weekly session. So if you wouldn't mind reiterating or just very clearly stating to me the reason why you want us to grant your modification to your,
yes,
your
thank you for your question. Since all of this has began, I have been in therapy for about 2.5 years. And I don't feel like I have that much more work to do in therapy on a weekly basis. Around the time that I requested it, I was having trouble kind of coming into session knowing what to talk about. So I felt that, with meeting my goals and working through what I needed to work through, that I didn't need to have weekly therapy sessions any longer.
Okay, I don't want to interrupt you. So just so that I'm clear, I don't want to make any assumptions here. It has nothing to do with logistics or fees or a financial burden, if you will?
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with that.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Eleanor Uribe, if there are any questions, thank you.
Hello, Ms. Benega. Okay, you had mentioned something about transparency is freeing. So what I wanted to ask was what other insights might you have about yourself and actions that were taken in retrospect?
Yes. The insights that I've gained has been, understanding all the responsibilities that I have in my life, and not taking enough time for myself to, decompress, um, utilize the self-care strategies, and once again, just relationships being more supportive than they had been in the past. So working through, the relationships where I was giving a lot more than getting was one of, I think, whether it be in my marriage or with friends, I learned to create boundaries and communicate what I need, and allowing myself to let go of relationships that were not working for me in my life. So that was a huge thing for me. And I think for even with marriage, just getting the emotional support from my spouse, that is that really helps me to kind of balance everything. Um, I have colleagues also that I can speak to for consultations, right? And um, I'm happy to say that I have a handful of people that I can call if at the moment I needed to just uh, vent and talk to about whatever is happening at the moment. I don't think I had that back then, So I'm really proud of myself for, developing those kind of relationships and having that available to me. Um, so I hope that's sufficient. I took some notes. I'm wondering if I've said everything.
Okay, and the last question I had was, you'd mentioned that you're only seeing, it sounds like about 8 clients per week. About how long has that been, and why?
Yeah. I have purposely decided to not overdo myself with my work. I'm fortunate to work for supplemental income at this point. My husband is the sole provider of our family, and I enjoy what I do tremendously. It's a passion of mine, and I've gotten a lot of feedback in the last couple of months of how helpful I've been to my clients. Um, when I got off of tolling and started, back at work with the group practice, I let the owner know, like, I don't want to take more than 12 clients. So I've had average of 8 to 10 clients a week, and and there's a great need for it right now, and I could take on more, but I'm choosing not to, to be able to just have a good balance in my life and kind of get back on track with, like, well, back then I feel like I'm on track now with just taking better care of myself, and having that support network as I was talking about. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's helped me, and I haven't pushed myself. I think in the past, when all that was happening in around 2016, I was 25 clients, on top of part-time as needed job with a nonprofit. So, and my kids were much younger at that time, so it was a lot to balance. My kids are older now; they're 10 and 8, and I just make more time to slow down and take care of myself.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, are we good? Okay. Your Honor, I believe there are no further questions from the board.
Thank you. Let me check with Ms. Crawford whether she has any additional questions.
Thank you. I don't have additional questions, but I did want to note that the petitioner is not, let's see, she's not eligible to seek early termination at this point. She would have to have 2 years of successful probation, and she's just shy of that. It would be 2 years on November 24th. So right now, the only thing that she's eligible to seek is a modification of her probation terms.
Okay.
Thank you for that. That's definitely good.
Yes. May I speak on that?
Yes, and Ms. Finnegan, I wanted to give you an opportunity to also do what we call redirect, which is you can add to your testimony after the questions.
Thank you so much. I just want to be clear with the board that my initial petition was not to request for early termination. When I had submitted the petition for discontinuing therapy, my caseworker had said that I would be so close to the 2 years that I can also request for early termination. And when I was contacted to make that addition of early termination, I did ask, would that be possible? Because it's not 2 years, and then I think, I'm not sure who I spoke to, I apologize, but they had gotten back to me and said that it would be okay. So I just want to make clear that I wasn't doing anything to, try to get in on something that wasn't told to me that was possible.
Thank you, Ms. Fanegas, the board chair here. So it wasn't taken that way, but I appreciate your clarification. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Finnegan, if there's anything else you would like to add before the matter is submitted?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. So that concludes the petition hearing in this matter. The case is submitted and the record is closed. We are off the record in this matter. And I believe, since this is the last petition, that I'll give it back to the board.
Thank you, Your Honor. And just for the proceeding, our board will go in closed sessions for our moderator if we can actually make sure that no one else other than the judge will be present to our closed session. So I'll give the moderator a minute or two to make sure that's the case. And then we are going, as a board, to assess a little bit our work in the afternoon, because there is some lunch somewhere between here to tonight. So we're going to make some decisions together about what we're going to review first. Usually the judge is here waiting for us, so perhaps my proposal will be to do the cases first, then do lunch. So we're going closed session, we do the cases, the petitioners, and then do lunch, and then we resume again for closed session for the rest agenda items in the agenda. Is that correct, legal counsel? We're no longer coming out to open session. We will re-adjourn for tomorrow at 9 a.m. for our second day of board proceedings. So thank you. Thank you, legal counsel. So moderator, we can conclude now unless our petitioner needs to do anything else. I think you're free to go, and we appreciate you for being here today. Thank you so much for your time.